Willow's defiance seemed to amuse the old man, but all three of them in the room knew the truth. When it came down to it, all that mattered was Leo's decision. On a deeper level, accepting Willow as his fiancée was never just about adding a wife to the family. It was about forging a bond. For Willow, it was the fulfillment of a wish. For the patriarch, it was securing a successor. Leo, the old man said, his voice a dry rasp, the moment I handed you that evidence, it meant I was trading your uncle's exile for your return. I get it. Leo's life had taught him to understand the logic of ruthless men, even if he couldn't comprehend their motives. Family. In the end, it's supposed to be a home first. There had to have been love between the three brothers at some point, right? The old man must have felt something watching his sons grow up. Yet here they were, torn apart like enemies. It was a kind of complexity Leo couldn't quite articulate. All he knew was that mixing love and business never ended well. Leo, running a family is far harder than you can ever imagine. That I can understand. Leo had struggled just to build a normal life for two people, a life with food on the table, a roof over their heads, and access to a doctor. It was hard enough to manage an empire like this. Objectively, Leo had to admit he admired the old man. The patriarch had fought in a war, carried a gun, and then came home to build a dynasty. He was the very picture of a man who belonged at the top. He was the kind of man who would say, "Let history be my judge. I did what had to be done." Leo's disapproval meant nothing, and he wasn't arrogant enough to condemn a man based on his own limited perspective. The conflict was ideological. It was the very reason he didn't want to be the heir. In movies and TV shows, powerful families were factories for melodrama. It was no different in reality. The second he stepped into this world, he was caught in the same cycle. Rick was a smart man. If he had protected Ethan to the end, the cycle of hatred would have continued. So Rick cut his losses. He'd never seen Payton as a daughter-in-law anyway, pushing her toward Leo from the start. But could Ethan ever let it go? Could he endure the whispers, the talk of his former fiancée running off with his cousin? And Payton, knowing Ethan hated her, even wanted her dead, would she ever feel safe? And if she felt unsafe, wouldn't Leo? Wouldn't he be tempted to make his cousin disappear? Leo could see the tangled threads, and his instinct was to pull away. It was too damn complicated. "Grandpa, I'm just a normal guy who wants a simple, happy life." "You look back on your life," the old man said, shooting him a sideways glance, "and tell me if you see anything remotely resembling simple and happy." Dr. Shaw and Payton, two brilliant and calculating women, had both once concluded that Leo was a man who simply enjoyed living in the moment. But was his life ever truly peaceful? Even before the incident at the Cypress Lounge, you could see it in the memories Summerlin had shared. As a student, he was always hustling, always finding new ways to make money. It was a life of scrambling and fighting. "We all chase the things we can never have," the patriarch said, patting Leo's shoulder. He cleared his throat. "That's why I tell you, being a parent, a patriarch, is hard. You have to know what your children truly, deeply desire." A flicker of light ignited in the old man's cloudy eyes as he looked at his grandson. Leo was different from everyone else in the Miller family. Because of the previous generation's baggage, the patriarch had only been able to watch his development from a distance. It was why both he and Rick had suggested letting Leo live a quiet, carefree life. They knew it was what he wanted, but Leo had never chosen it. Rick had wondered about that, ultimately concluding he just didn't understand his son. But the patriarch was 90 years old. He saw things more clearly. "Leo, ideals exist precisely because they are unattainable. Most self-made men in this world spend their lives chasing the dream of finally stopping to enjoy life. But they can't. They're so used to doing everything themselves that the moment they pause, they're consumed by anxiety." Leo didn't argue. The old man was right. He had never truly experienced a moment of quiet happiness. He'd had chances to stop. If he had broken up with Summerlin after making his fortune from a lounge, the money would have been more than enough. But he hadn't chosen that path either. That's why, at the same level of wealth, a rich kid finds it easier to stop and enjoy life, the patriarch said, giving him a light punch. It's because they don't feel that anxiety when they stop. Because if they blow all their money, someone will be there to bail them out, Leo said, his tone mercilessly blunt. The old man's eyes crinkled into a smile. "Crude, but you're not wrong. I like that about you. So what you want? I'll give it to you." The patriarch gestured for Leo to help him up. The medical team hovered nervously nearby, wanting to protest, but not daring to. The old man simply waved them off and began his slow walk across the great lawn of the Miller estate. You really went to a lot of trouble to get me to come back, Leo said, supporting the old man's surprisingly heavy, skeletal frame. You couldn't write a revenge plot this convoluted. A patriarch has two jobs: hold the family together and give his children what they want. You've already gone above and beyond on the first one, and I'm about to finish the second. The old man paused to rest, staring at the clouds drifting over the distant mountains. Your Uncle Edward couldn't hold the family together, so I removed him. He felt wronged, so I gave him his revenge. But that wasn't fair to Frank. Frank has been a fighter his whole life, always needing to win. But for the sake of the family, he had to lose back then. 20 years later, I let him win. In exchange for those 20 years, he got the chance for his son to be the heir. And Rick is the most like me. He wants control. And while a mountain can't have two tigers, he's been diligent for 2 decades. No mistakes, no foolishness. So I'm giving him back his control. The patriarch's gaze fell on the enormous bronze bell that stood near the lake. 20 years ago, we had enemies inside and out. Today, the fighting is over, but the Miller family is still the Miller family. Honestly, Leo had to give it to him. The shriveled old man had a certain terrifying grace. He was a monster, but he was a king. There was something in the soil of the Miller estate that made brothers turn on each other. The moment 2 of them were in the same place, the family feud buff activated. Vincent, you son of a bitch. You were secretly working with Edward Miller. In a corner of the garden, Winston Win-shung was roaring at his older brother. Parents could give you the wrong name, but the one you chose for yourself was always right. Vincent Shung, looking a little worse for wear, trembled as he faced his brother. It was just hedging my bets. And what about my daughter? I was in touch with Edward before the engagement was even a possibility. Vincent shot back. How was he to know this old debt would be called in? Of course, he knew an alliance through marriage was more reliable. But he also knew that without his connection to Edward, the Shungs would never have been considered in the first place. When knew Leo wasn't the type to hold this against them, he was already prepared to make a righteous break with his brother, to shout from the rooftops that Vincent was merely his biological sibling. But an alliance like this was a tangled mess. Just when it seemed his daughter and Leo were turning a business deal into a real relationship, his own family skeletons came rattling out of the closet. I can't even look Leo in the eye now, Win groaned. Vincent fell silent. Even an idiot could see that Leo was the ultimate victor, and the situation was far more dangerous than his brother imagined. When the time comes, just put all the blame on me. You're damn right I will. Brotherly love was in short supply. One would be happy to cut him loose. But you need to be careful what the old man is doing. Rick told me the engagement was to give Edward a way out, a lifeline. Vincent stared at his younger brother. Have you been living under a rock all these years? Do you really think this is some high school romance? Rick didn't deal with this privately. He revealed it in front of us for a reason. He's sending a message. This is a political marriage. He's using this to keep the Shung family in line. From now on, even if Leo hits you, curses you, or even your daughter, you'll have to take it. Win froze. A moment later, he grabbed Vincent by the collar. This is all your fault, you son of a bitch. But for once, Vincent didn't argue. A strange, serene smile spread across his face. There was no regret, only the thrill of a gambler who had lost his stake. Win, he said, if I lost a bet, the worst that could happen is one daughter has an unhappy life. But if I had one with Edward, the Shung family would have become the next Miller family. All of this was playing out on a screen in front of Leo. He and the patriarch were watching on the security feed. So was Willow. The old man coughed. Vincent Shung has ambition. Sometimes, overreaching isn't a flaw. Leo glanced at Willow. Don't listen to their nonsense. This has nothing to do with you. I'll be good, she said quietly. You can hit me if you want, but please, don't hit my dad. Right now, I feel like hitting you, Leo said, but he shook his head and smiled. As children of wealthy families, he and Isabella were pure rebels. Willow was not. He remembered the reason she'd agreed to the engagement in the first place. She had the conviction of someone willing to sacrifice herself for her father. Grandpa, let's skip the part where you put the screws to them. Willow had nothing to do with this. You're not even the heir yet, and you're already giving me orders? The old man shot him a look. They'll get the message sooner or later. It doesn't matter if Rick is in charge, or even if that bastard, your father, is running things. He'd find a reason to remind his in-laws of their place. That's what a political marriage is. If I agree to be the heir, Leo asked tentatively, can we call off the engagement? No, because before I die, I want to see you grow up. You want to see me get married? As the head of this family, seeing the heir marry is seeing the continuation of the bloodline. But as your grandfather, I also have to give you what you want. What does the second part have to end with growing up? The patriarch smiled, the wrinkles around his eyes like deep canyons. Leo, growing up means entering the next stage of life. But how do you know when you've reached it? You look at what you desire. Has it changed? It's like when a student leaves school for the working world. The goal changes from grades to status and money. When what you chase changes, so does your mindset. For 20 short years, you've been chasing a peaceful life, but you've never experienced it. Your very way of life means you never will. And because you've never had it, you'll keep chasing it blindly. I've seen too many people in my life, the old man continued. Some spend their whole lives chasing adventure and chaos, only to find that their ultimate goal is peace and quiet. Others live quiet, ordinary lives, but spend their nights dreaming of adventure and freedom, getting worked up just at the sound of the words. But a man who craves adventure can never be at peace. Even when he has the chance, he'll say, "Let me just finish this one last thing." But there's always one last thing. And a man who craves comfort will never live a life of freedom and adventure. He'll just lie in bed at night and say, "If I had the money, if I had the chance, I'd be bolder than anyone." But why should a man who enjoys comfort be given the chance for adventure? The old man paused, lost in a memory. Leo, when I learned that you chose to drive your car head-on into a trap just to face a monster lurking in the shadows, I knew what kind of man you were. I want you as the heir, yes, for the continuation of the bloodline. But I can also give you the life you've been chasing for 20 years. From this day forward, you can live the life you want freely. That is the meaning of family. While everyone contributes to the family, in turn, gives you the life you desire. He reached out and patted Leo's head, a rare expression of tenderness on his stern face. When you no longer desperately cling to the pursuits of your youth, that is when you have truly grown up. The patriarch left for his meeting. Leo tried to follow, but he was stopped. The family's business is not your concern. Go live the life you want. I keep my promises. I don't feel right when things are out of my control. They don't feel right. You'll get used to it eventually. With that, the old man turned and left, a swarm of medical staff trailing behind him. The room was silent, leaving only Leo and Willow. "Willow, I'm warning you," Leo said with a sigh. "This self-destructive path of yours, you have to see it through to the end." "I know, right? I guess you've already figured it out. When your heart finally dies, you'll leave." Leo lay back on the sofa to rest, but Willow nervously sat down next to him. "Leo, I have something to say to you. Say what you need to, but you're sitting on my hand." He pointed under her. Willow shifted, her face flushing. "Leo," she said, her voice soft, "what I meant was you don't have to worry about my feelings. Because when my heart dies, I'll leave on my own." The same words, but in this new context, they sounded different. It wasn't a sad prediction anymore. It was a declaration. "Isn't that the same thing?" Leo asked, confused. "The point I'm trying to make is that you don't have to care if I'm happy or not." "Now you're giving me orders," Leo chuckled. "So, you mean I can do whatever the hell I want without any guilt, and if you can't handle it, you'll leave on your own terms?" "Yes, that's still the same thing." No, you're missing the point," Willow said, shaking her head rapidly. She leaned in, her voice a whisper. "The point is, as long as I don't say I can't handle it, you can't kick me out." She looked at him, her expression a mixture of fear and determination. Leo stared back, dumbfounded. He finally understood. He could treat her however he wanted, with no psychological burden. As long as she didn't say the word, he couldn't use his old excuse. "I'm surrounded by crazy women. You should stay away from me." She was tying herself to him, irrevocably. A dark thought crossed Leo's mind. Was this her way of saying, the safe word is "I can't handle it, and until you hear it, we don't stop"? "I'm sorry, Leo, I don't understand," Willow said, though the blush creeping up her neck betrayed her. Leo just smiled. "I admit it. You've earned your place in this game. For one reason and one reason only. You're the craziest one of them all." The patriarch died. There was no dramatic, sentimental scene. Leo didn't even know the exact moment the old man passed. He only knew that when the great bronze bell began to toll, the Millers, already notified, swarmed toward the main house like a colony of ants. Leo watched them all like a spectator, studying their faces. He didn't see sadness on a single one. It didn't matter. He'd always been an outsider. It wasn't until the family office began to read the patriarch's final will and testament that things got interesting. Since they were reading his direct words, the will was littered with profanity. He cursed out everyone's mothers and their ancestors, and since most people in the room shared an ancestor, no one was spared. When the dust settled, there were only two key points. First, Frank Miller's voting rights in the family council were restored. He would retain control of his overseas operations and be given a seat on the board of the main corporation. Second, Leo Miller was granted a position in the family's trust fund. That was it. No one mentioned an heir. Leo analyzed the 2 points and came to one conclusion. He was free. With Frank back in the family's inner circle, Leo had protection. Family business could no longer touch him. And the trust fund meant one thing: money. Even if Leo did nothing for the rest of his life, cash would be deposited into his account. He didn't even need to exist as an heir. From that moment on, Leo Miller could enjoy total personal and financial freedom without any of the responsibility. The mountain that had loomed over his head had vanished into thin air. The matter of his engagement was, by some unspoken agreement, not mentioned. The patriarch should have mentioned it. He was the one who had arranged it. But he hadn't, so no one else dared to. And so, in that moment, the choice of whether to participate in the family business, whether to be the heir, whether to continue the engagement, all of it fell squarely into Leo's hands. And if he didn't want to choose right now, that was fine too, because the patriarch's last words had been reserved for him. "You little bastard, the world will keep spinning without any of us. Go do whatever the hell you want." Most people get nervous when facing a major life decision. Leo was no exception. In the past, when deciding whether to join the lounge, whether to deliberately crash his car, he had been tense. For a normal person, a chance to change your destiny might only come once. You were lucky to even have a choice. You didn't dare hesitate. A moment's hesitation and the opportunity would slip away. He had never allowed himself to stop. But now, at long last, the patriarch had given Leo the one thing he had never had in his entire life: a margin for error. He could hesitate now. He didn't have to worry if his choice was right or wrong. He didn't have to do anything. He could go to a land center and play games for 10 days straight, or go bar hopping every night, or fly to the Antarctic. And if one day he regretted it, that was fine too, because whenever he was ready to choose, everything would be waiting for him, right where he left it. Want to come back and get involved in the family business? Come back. His father had power now. Rick would be thrilled to see his son return. Want to continue the engagement? Continue it whenever you want. The Shung family wouldn't dare say a word. The old man had already put the fear of God in them. Want to be the heir? Be the heir. Besides Leo, who else was there? Rick would much rather his brother's son take over than some distant relative. From that moment on, Leo no longer had to push himself forward out of fear. He nodded, walked to the patriarch's empty chair, and bowed his head deeply. He said nothing. 15 minutes earlier, the old man had returned to the lakeside alone. He squinted at the distant mountains. The Millers had built their estate here for one simple reason. The land was vast, and they wanted to show off. That's what the newly rich do. But it was worth noting that the bones of his comrades from the war were also buried in these mountains. He had lived for too long. Death was no longer a frightening thing. He knew that the moment the bell tolled, countless people would come to mourn him. But what did it matter? They mourned whoever sat by the lake. It had little to do with the man himself. But he was a patriarch, everyone's patriarch. For the rest of the family, his job was to keep the house from falling. For his own sons and grandsons, his job was to do his best to grant their wishes. Otherwise, what right did he have to be the head of the family? Having so many children was a damn nuisance. "I'm finally going to die." The clouds began to part. An ray of sunlight pierced through. The setting sun cast a warm glow on his ancient face. These mountains and those cloudy eyes had witnessed the history of this land. 70 years ago, 50 years ago, 20 years ago. The memories, difficult to recall, were like an old, worn-out bellows, capable of nothing more than a creak, unable to spark a single flame. As if remembering something, the old man grinned. He had no other identity now. He was just a grandfather. He had found a wife for his last grandson and given him the life he wanted. He could close his eyes now. It was a little late, but what in this world was ever perfect? And so, by the lake under the setting sun, he closed his eyes and did not wake. Perhaps a terrible screenwriter would try to add a sentimental scene here, listing the patriarch's achievements, surrounding him with a circle of weeping women and children. But the old man wouldn't have liked that. In his final moments, the last image that flashed through his mind was this: a young Rick Miller yelling at his two foolish younger brothers on a pier. A silent Edward Miller trailing behind him, picking up seashells. A bruised and swollen Frank Miller, having just lost a fight with the dockworkers. His grandson Ethan, afraid to come home from Thailand, having to be brought back by the old man himself. And Leo, lost and forced to keep moving forward. There is nothing more sorrowful than the weight of time. January 7. Sunny. Nothing eventful. The usual 4-drip, trashy daytime TV. Summer Lynn sang a song for me. Leo came by this morning with chicken soup. January 8. Cloudy. Nothing eventful. The usual 4-drip. The doctor says I'm recovering well, can be discharged in 3 days. Leo came by tonight and played games on his phone at my bedside. January 9. Sunny. Nothing eventful. The usual 4 drip. Leo's getting bored with his games. Asked me if I could find him something to do. January 10. Sunny again. No more IVs. Leo's mental state is deteriorating. Finals are coming up. He has to study. For anyone else, it's reviewing. For him, every subject is brand new. I've never seen him so frazzled, scratching his head and frowning. It's kind of cute. I want to eat him. January 11. Finally cloudy. Leo's mood is also a bit cloudy. When he found out I was being discharged, his world fell apart. After I leave, he'll have nothing to do. He said he can't stand being idle, and asked if I could please find him something to do. I said yes. My body is weak, but my mouth still works. I saw the look in his eyes change. A full belly and a warm bed lead to wicked thoughts. The old proverbs are true. January 12. Windy. Leo helped me walk down the hallway. We brushed against each other. I could feel the little beast inside him stirring. But first, he asked me about my plans for the future. He asked me this every day. I always refused to answer. I suspect if I said I was going to follow him, this soundproof private room might become a battlefield. I don't mind a room becoming a battlefield, but I don't want to follow him. January 13. Discharge today. I'm in a good mood. The clouds look like they're on fire. This will be my last diary entry, recording my time being cared for by Leo in a hospital. I'll write more tonight. Leo is here to pick me up. We should celebrate you getting out of here, Leo said, tossing all of Payton's hospital supplies into a trash can. Dr. Shaw had told him it was good luck to throw away a patient's things from the hospital. The doctor said I need to stick to a light diet. Maybe just some soup. Eating isn't the point. We need to talk about your future. Payton pretended not to hear him. I was giving you a pass because you were a patient, Leo said, but you're discharged now. If you keep playing deaf, I'll assume you've agreed to follow my orders. I just got out. You have to give me some time to think. You've been lying in a hospital bed for days, and you haven't thought about it? You must have some idea of where you're going. Back home or somewhere else. North or south. Payton stood silently, looking up at Leo's back. He was the same as always, seeing right through her. He knew she didn't want to stay. Leo, let's be realistic. If I stay by your side, you'll have to deal with a lot of criticism. She was Ethan's former fiancée. The situation was too complicated. Her own reputation, both in the Miller family and in Riverbend's upper circles, would be ruined. Even Leo's own friends would whisper, "And you're an engaged man. Willow won't accept it. What does this have to do with her?" Leo shot back. "A mistress is supposed to stay hidden from the wife," Payton said, not bothering to hide her thoughts. "Who said anything about you being my mistress? What is going on in that head of yours?" Leo tapped her on the forehead, then rolled his eyes. "When I say, work with me, I mean work for me. You'll earn your living with your own skills, not as a sugar baby in your dreams. I'm the only one who gets to be a sugar baby around here. But you don't have any businesses." "But I have money," Leo said, his tone dead serious. He had the $15 million, well, $1.5 million he'd gotten from the Miller family. He used to be afraid to spend it, but now that Frank was back in the family, the money was safe to use. The problem was, he had no idea how to spend it. It was just sitting there. "I don't have the skills, but I have the money. You have the skills, but you're broke. We're a match made in heaven. If we're going to run a media company again, the money you have is nowhere near enough," Payton advised practically. "We can start small. The point is, the money is yours to use. Think about it. You'd give it all to me? You wouldn't be involved at all. I have finals to worry about. I don't have time for any of that." Payton hadn't expected this. If he had asked her to stay and be his kept woman, she would have refused. But to work for him, to build something, that was something she could actually consider. What was there to consider? Could there possibly be a better ending for her than this? Starting a business wasn't something you did overnight. After just planning the idea, Leo was ready to take Payton home. But there was a problem. Payton didn't have a home. Her apartment had been a rental, and since she'd been planning to die a dramatic death, she'd already given it up. Now, she was not only penniless, but also homeless. "Should I get you a hotel room? You can lend me some money. I'll pay you back when I get my first paycheck." Payton had nothing left except the outfit and jewelry she'd worn to the concert. Everything else was gone. "Ethan was the one who hurt you, so I'll get the Miller family to cover your medical bills. As for the rest, we don't have to be so formal about it. I can't just take your money for no reason. It's not a big deal. Think of it as an employee benefit or a friend helping a friend." Payton shook her head, her stance firm. "If we're employer and employee, then consider it as salary advance. If we're lovers, then I'll live off you until you get tired of me and I'll leave. Then let's call it a salary advance," Leo said, respecting her wishes. He knew Payton was a little broken, but villains often had stronger principles than heroes. If she had truly wanted to sell her body for favors, she never would have ended up in this mess. I'll transfer you 10,000 to get you started. We can sort out the details later. Okay, where are you going? The library. Without my roommate's help, I'm definitely going to fail my exams. Then I'll go buy some clothes and necessities. Sound good. Let's get dinner tonight. Leo jogged off, hopping on a bike and heading back to campus. While Leo was rushing to the library, a pair of best friends were already there, supposedly studying. Skylar, how is your studying going even slower than mine? Willow had been swamped with engagement matters and had finally carved out some time to hit the books, hoping her best friend could help. It turned out Skylar was just as hopeless. I'm taking next semester off anyway, so there's no point in studying. Then why did you agree to come to the library? To interview a certain newly engaged person, of course. Skylar flashed a wicked grin and grabbed Willow's arm, refusing to let go. Being a family woman is different, isn't it? It's so hard to see you these days. Don't be ridiculous. How does an engagement make me a family woman? I'm telling you, Willow, if you don't move in with him right now, you're going to regret it later. Willow looked at her friend's serious expression, completely baffled. The fact that her best friend seemed to know her fiancé better than she didn't strike her as odd. After a while, you get used to strangeness. I don't even know if our engagement is still on, Willow confessed, troubled. The Miller family, as expected, had put the screws to the shungs. The development project for their scenic area was put on hold, which sent her family into a panic. They had visited several times to apologize, but it was no use. All they got from Rick Miller was a single sentence. It's not my call. The real feud is between Edward and Frank. You need to ask Frank. So, her father had rushed to see Frank Miller, only to be told, it's not my call. You need to ask my nephew. When it came to Leo, the Shung brothers were useless. The task naturally fell to Willow, and that was why she hadn't dared to contact Leo for days. If she went to him now, was it for love or for business? She didn't dare to find out. But then Leo walked into the library. Willow spotted her fiancé instantly and buried her head like an ostrich. But unfortunately for her, she had a good friend. Skylar stood up and waved her arms wildly. Leo, over here. We're over here. Leo heard Skylar's voice, but he didn't head for their corner. The other people in the library were already glaring at him. Shouting in a library was a cardinal sin. Skylar and the word study hard did not belong in the same sentence. Sitting with her was a guarantee of getting nothing done. Study hard, Leo mouthed silently, then veered toward the base camp his roommates had established. Guys, help me out here, he whispered. I'll treat you to the works tonight. The three roommates looked up in unison, their faces a mixture of shock, excitement, apprehension, and unease. This was why AI could never truly replace humans. Skylar, who was constitutionally incapable of sitting still, had wandered over and overheard their hushed conversation. Her inner justice warrior immediately came online. She leaned over the table, scanning each of them with a serious expression. What did I just hear? The works? I'm arresting all of you. You're invited, Leo said, glancing at her. Yay. Okay, you're not arrested anymore. By the works, we mean dinner, video games, and pool. Well, yeah, you didn't think I meant prostitution, did you? Don't say such things in this hallowed hall of knowledge, Skylar said, her eyes twinkling. She poked Leo in the chest. The fact that you even thought of it means you have a guilty conscience. I'm not in the mood to argue with you right now. If I don't go, I know you won't be able to control your third leg. If I really couldn't control it, you'd be the one to regret it. You, aiming your third leg at me? In your dreams. The three roommates had never seen Leo and Skylar interact like this. They just stared, dumbfounded, as the two traded barbs. Do couples have to learn how to rap battle these days? Willow, on the other hand, was used to it. She quietly took a seat at the table, trying her best not to watch them. It would only make her angry, and being angry was pointless. So it was better not to look. Sometimes, she felt like she should change her name. It was a family tradition, after all. She could be Willow Woe. Then, whenever Leo asked, "Are you upset?" she could smile and say, "Just a little woe is me." And it would be true, just a little. As a latecomer to the game, someone with no history with him before the amnesia, Willow saw things more clearly. She felt that Skylar was the one who was a natural-born master of the game. After all, Lao Tzu spoke of governing by doing nothing. In her eyes, her best friend perfectly embodied that philosophy. Everyone else was fighting, drawing swords, spilling blood. To maintain her position, Willow had become Leo's official fiancée in the eyes of high society. She had to deal with this uncle and that executive, all of them asking when the wedding was. After the engagement party, she felt like she had a label permanently stuck to her back that read, property of Leo Miller, and her situation was mild compared to Payton's. Her cousin-in-law had nearly died for him, yet neither of them had gained a clear advantage. But Skylar had been completely offline through it all, doing nothing. And yet, somehow, it always felt like she had the best chance of winning. Master Hausher had taught her many things, but even he couldn't defeat the fundamental principles of the universe. Willow pouted, picking at her fingers. The roommates, naturally, saw her as just another spectator like them. In their minds, Leo and Skylar were the couple, flirting and bickering. The three roommates and the girl's best friend were just the audience. And what happens in a situation like this? Dave whispered to Mike. Mike, let's both get up and go to the bathroom. On the way, I'll suddenly tackle you from behind. What about my pride? You already have a girlfriend. Luke's a player, and Leo is on another level. I'm the only one left with nothing. She hasn't officially said yes yet. Dave shot back. He was the last single man in their dorm. Luke was too busy with his own hushed conversation in the corner to pay attention to the two novices. So their little scheme began. Mike, help me out just this once. This is so childish. Well, do you have a better idea? Dave asked, looking up nervously. Facts spoke for themselves. Mike had at least been talking to a girl for weeks. His romantic experience must have grown exponentially. Mike savored Dave's admiring gaze. He pondered for a moment, then said slowly, tackling me is too crude, too abstract. Remember what Dr. Shaw taught us? Interactions with a girl must be specific. Dave answered immediately. Is a random tackle specific? No. So I should. You should walk up to her and pretend to take a jump shot. Show her your hobby. Mike, you're a genius. Dave immediately sat up straighter, quietly flexing his wrists. He rolled his neck as if stretching after a long study session. Then he stood up, deliberately avoiding looking at Willow, who sat across the table. His expression was tense, like a soldier about to head to the front lines. He had to find the right moment, the right position, to trace a perfect arc through the air. Lost in his performance, Dave was completely unaware that everyone else at the table was watching him. When you're in the zone, you don't realize how weird you look. Skylar leaned close to Leo. Is your roommate having a seizure? No idea, Leo said, shaking his head, just as baffled. What are you doing? He asked Dave. Going to the bathroom. The bathroom's behind you. My leg fell asleep. Just stretching it out. Of course, Dave knew the bathroom was behind him, but he had to take the long way around to get in front of Willow. He glanced over and saw that she was looking right at him. This is it. As if possessed, Dave suddenly executed a perfect jump shot in place. For a fleeting moment, an invisible hoop materialized in the air, and his imaginary basketball swished through the net. He could almost hear the roar of the crowd chanting, MVP, MVP. He got lost in the roll, putting a hand to his ear like Allen Iverson, listening to the cheers. And he did hear something. Unfortunately, it was the sound of Skylar trying to hold back her laughter. Ha ha, Leo, he's trying to impress your wife. Beautiful women are a sight to behold no matter where they are, especially when two of them are sitting side by side. Without a doubt, Skylar and Willow were the types of girls who were most popular in school. Fair-skinned, delicate, and thin. Skylar was dressed in her usual light colors, but today she had a particularly studious vibe in a white hoodie and tight jeans, the zippers at the ankles undone just enough to reveal a sliver of white socks. Willow's style was the complete opposite, a direct contrast to Skylar's. Ever since her first dark transformation, her wardrobe had filled with darker clothes. Today, under her black coat, she wore a black hoodie long enough to cover her shorts and a pair of leggings. The black made her look even slimmer and paler, adding a touch of elegance to her already striking features. You could never get tired of looking at beautiful women, but adding a red-faced, embarrassed novice to the mix was another story. As Skylar dissolved into laughter and Willow looked on in confusion, it was Leo who finally walked over and patted Dave on the shoulder. It's okay, Dave. Life doesn't have that many spectators. Dave's face was as red as a fire hydrant. He finally managed to look up, only to see Mike holding up his phone, recording him. What are you doing? Nothing, nothing. Mike quickly put his phone away, an innocent look on his face. Dave felt his world crumble. He could only stammer out an explanation. Sorry, Leo. I thought she was just Skylar's friend. It's fine, don't worry about it. It was just a small misunderstanding. Leo actually found it pretty funny. Your shooting form is good. Just don't do it again. At Leo's jab, Dave looked like he wanted to bury his head under the table. Willow still hadn't figured out what was going on. She was poking her best friend's arm, asking for an explanation. Someone just tried to perform an airball shot for you, right in front of your husband. Fiancé. Willow corrected her, then asked, why was he shooting at the air? To look cool, obviously. But I'm engaged to Leo. Why would he still? Willow looked down at the engagement ring on her finger, lost in thought. If it were a stranger, she could understand. But this was Leo's roommate. Willow, in the family, you're the rightful fiancé. But here, this is school. Skylar clearly had more to say, but she chose to demonstrate instead. She quietly tapped the table in front of Luke. Luke, I have a question for you. Luke looked up. What's up, sister-in-law? Never mind. You've already answered it. Skylar turned back to Willow and shrugged. No words needed. At school, nobody knew about the complicated dynamics of their powerful family. Here, Skylar was Leo's ironclad girlfriend. The rumor was so widespread that people who confessed their feelings to Skylar would even mention Leo's name. If the two of them made out at the front gate of the university, people would just be confused about why they had to rub their happiness in everyone's faces, not that they were kissing in the first place. Isn't it normal for a couple to kiss? They would think. Wait, aren't we not a couple? So I'm just part of your kinky role play, right? Skylar's reputation for being eccentric and unpredictable was legendary. No one would question whether they were actually dating. They would just assume it was part of some bizarre performance art. Willow's expression was complicated. Her first thought was, why is it one trial after another? The journey to the West couldn't have been this hard. The stark contrast made her deeply uncomfortable. She had actually been through an engagement party. Engagements, weddings, all those seemingly extravagant ceremonies were designed for a practical purpose. That one party represented a shift in her identity. Before, family and friends had treated her as a student or a child. But a few days ago, she had accompanied her father to a business partner's dinner party. She had gone as Win Sheng's daughter, expecting to chat with other young people about their daily frustrations and where to hang out. But at the party, she found herself surrounded by a group of high society wives, eagerly linking arms with her and pulling her into their circle. The world of socialites had quietly crept up on her. The topics of conversation had suddenly matured. Willow had gone from being a wallflower to the center of attention, drawing even more focus than her father. It was all because of the engagement party. It was all because her future husband's name was Leo Miller. She was still reeling from it all. She had once complained to her father about the cynicism and cunning of adults, wondering why everyone wore fake smiles. Her father was a straightforward man, but even he had to play the part. Now, suddenly, she had become one of them. She remembered what her father had told her. No one likes putting on an act, but everyone has a reason to persevere. When Willow emerged from her thoughts, Leo was sitting next to her. He reached over and picked up the thick reference book in front of her. My dad asked me what I thought about the engagement. Willow said nothing, but her ears perked up. She had little say in the matter from any angle. But Leo changed the subject. My cousin saw you at a dinner party a few days ago. They called and asked me why I wasn't there. I went with my father. But once you were there, they only recognized you as a Miller daughter-in-law, right? Yes. Is that feeling what you want? Leo asked, his face a mask of curiosity and confusion. Willow shook her head. That wasn't what she liked. You reap what you sow. It seems this is all you're going to get. Leo's expression was unreadable. Willow wanted to say something, but she couldn't. If she spoke up now, would it be for business or for love? And what would Leo think? But Leo was the one who spoke. I'm in a rare period of rest right now. I don't have many plans. So, our engagement will continue. Huh. Willow looked up, completely taken by surprise. There are benefits to continuing the engagement. Frank has a legitimate reason to support your dad, since he's still re-establishing his footing in the family. Your dad is, at the very least, a trustworthy ally. It will stabilize your family situation. It's mutually beneficial. Leo wasn't telling her his real thoughts. He couldn't care less if Frank did well or not. The real reason for his decision was a matter of deep internal debate. People sneer at the small malice in a sincere love, but praise the flicker of remorse in a dirty one. Leo didn't know which was better or worse, but it was a thought born from a memory that had returned to him. Payton's love was a messy, complicated thing. Willow's feelings for him weren't necessarily as pure as they seemed. But at least Leo knew that Payton's regret was real. And if you peeled back the layers of Willow's motives, all that was left was genuine emotion. This decision didn't mean Willow was the one he had chosen. The road ahead was long. But at least, even after the patriarch's death, Leo was willing to keep the engagement. He was using it as a way to find himself. The Leo before the amnesia and the Leo in a state of total amnesia were both him. But he was the Leo of now, a person shaped by the past he had lost and the strange experiences he had gained because of it. Leo suddenly turned and looked at Skylar. The girl at the end of the table was smiling at him. She gave him a thumbs up. You're pretty amazing, you know that, Leo? The moment the word fiancé was spoken, someone was bound to be confused. Mike, do we need to give a gift for an engagement? Dave, why wasn't I invited? Luke, Leo, you. You're engaged. As Leo introduced his fiancée to his roommates, Willow remained silent, simply tucking her hair behind her ear to casually display the ring on her finger. The ditzy princess knew her own strengths. The title of fiancée, which she had fought so hard for, was her trump card. A fiancé had to do what a fiancé does. For instance, right now, they were sitting in a Korean barbecue restaurant, and Willow was paying. "I'm sorry for not inviting you to the engagement party. This is my apology," she said, already finding a new sense of balance. Skylar might have deep roots on campus, but neither she nor Leo were dedicated students. And even if Leo wanted to start taking his studies seriously, Skylar was leaving soon. Willow silently cheered herself on, planning to expand her influence as fiancée, starting with daily life. For example, she could start by making Leo a custom dipping sauce. She got up to do just that, fully embracing her new role as the virtuous wife, until she turned around and saw an unexpected, yet not entirely surprising, person sitting on the sofa. Cousin-in-law. For now on, just call me Payton." "Okay, cousin." "Payton." Willow shrank into a corner and fell silent. Some people had a presence that could suffocate a room just by sitting there. If Willow couldn't shake Skylar's dominance in the campus romance sphere, then in the realm of the virtuous wife, she was no match for Payton. Even without makeup, Payton's aura was overwhelming. It made the three roommates hunch over their food, eating in silence. "Guys, don't just eat. Let's talk business," Leo said. "By business, do you mean opening a little snack shop in the dorm?" Mike asked, lifting his head from his bowl. "A snack shop is small time." "Leo's probably thinking of an online store," Dave countered. "I'm thinking of renting a storefront near the university," Leo said without looking up, popping a piece of pickled garlic into his mouth. He had thought this through. It wasn't about making money. It was about giving Payton a place to land. "My initial thought is a bar. I don't know anything about other businesses. If you guys need cash, you can work part-time." Leo made the decision casually. "Can I work there too?" Skylar's eyes widened with excitement. "You'll have to ask her." "Not me," Leo said, pointing at Payton. But his cousin-in-law just kept her head down, not saying a word. Only when she felt all eyes on her did she finally look up. "Okay," she said, her gaze meeting Leo's from across the table. Her expression was distant, lost. "Leo, if we're gonna do business, we can't just do whatever you feel like. In this climate, a brick and mortar. Who's the boss here, you or me?" Snow had begun to fall in Riverbend, scattered flakes drifting through the air. The two of them walked side by side down a small road leading to her hotel. Fresh from the hospital, Payton's face was still pale. The clash of the vibrant neon signs from the storefronts and the frail, sickly woman created a cinematic image, a traveler returning home on a snowy night. The tragic beauty of a furrowed brow was a look Helen of Troy had already perfected. Payton frowned, her voice low. "Leo, I'm not trying to be difficult, but business is business. Everything has to be about the money. So if the bar is guaranteed to lose money, it won't lose money, but the initial investment and the time it takes to break even are both major issues. As long as it doesn't lose money, that's good enough. Who cares how much it makes?" Leo seemed carefree, holding out his hand to catch a snowflake. Payton turned and looked at the student, years younger than her. She still couldn't understand him. It was just like that day by the river in Cinder Creek, when she couldn't understand why he was so good to Summer Lynn. "Payton, if you don't stay, where will you go?" Leo asked, tilting his head. "Probably back to my hometown up north, get a job. I thought you'd be maxing out credit cards to start some crazy new venture." Payton shook her head. She had thought about it, but the energy she once had was gone, replaced by a bone-deep exhaustion. "So the bar is perfect for you to run. A beautiful, enchanting woman like you, with the added allure of being a bar owner. Just thinking about it gets the blood pumping. Isn't that just the same as keeping a mistress?" This was why Payton was refusing. She could see that Leo had no real interest in business. This was all for her. "Do you want to get married?" Leo's questions jumped around erratically. "No." Payton shook her head. "Be single for the rest of your life?" "I've tried marriage. It's nothing special. What will you tell people? That I'm a widow?" "Wait. The deceased in this scenario wouldn't happen to be me, would it? Then I'm divorced. It's just a label anyway. This is so messed up. So I guess that makes you my ex-wife," Leo said with a self-deprecating laugh. His love life was a masterclass in dysfunction. The road was short, and soon they were at the hotel entrance. Normally, one of them would have spoken. The host would invite the guest up, or the guest would say they had to leave. But the two of them stood in a comfortable, loaded silence, separated by a wall called the past. Leo never once mentioned their brief time together when he had his memories. It was as if it had never happened. He was subconsciously trying to erase it, but Payton couldn't get over it. a bar, or anything else. She was confident she could run it successfully, but the past she couldn't face was the real weapon that tormented her. "You're afraid to face me?" Leo leaned against the planter by the hotel entrance, taking a sip from a water bottle. "I'm facing you right now, aren't I?" Payton mumbled, her head down. "Then why don't you invite me up? I'm afraid you'll say no, and I'll lose face. If I leave today, will we ever see each other again in this lifetime?" Leo grinned. "You've already thought it through, haven't you? Go back to your northern town, get a job, and tell people you're divorced or widowed." Payton looked down, then up again. "Leo, I'm not being dramatic. If there's a place where you can use me, I'll stay and work. If this is just to help me, then thank you, but I don't deserve it. We did have a good time in that little village. But now, let me tell you the story of what happened after we left." Payton said that after they left the village, their lives returned to normal. Or more accurately, Leo's life returned to normal. Work, school, friends. But Payton's soul was trapped back in Cinder Creek. A person who is single-mindedly charging forward can't stop to admire the beautiful scenery along the way. Because if you look, you won't want to keep going. She knew Leo had a girlfriend, but she wasn't one for formalities. As long as she could enjoy the moment, who cared about titles? She knew Leo needed rest, needed help with his daily life. All those unopened men's toiletries in her apartment were for him. She didn't have grand expectations. She just hoped he would come over occasionally. But the worst thing happened. The toiletries remained unopened because they were never used. Leo had rejected her. "I'm going home to sleep. If you ever drink too much or something, I can pick you up. Save your mom the trouble." That's too much trouble for you. That was how he rejected her. Not with polite excuses, but with a firm refusal. 3 days in a row. The village might have been Payton's prison, but Riverbend was Leo's. She knew the Leo here was different from the Leo in the mountains. Only she was trapped. She had even fantasized about using dark, underhanded tactics to force a breakup between him and Summerlin. But no one gave her the chance. For days, she didn't even leave her apartment, experiencing the full, brutal force of withdrawal. Finally, she pulled herself together and forced herself to move on. She went to see Edward, the Reverend Wild. He didn't even give her the time of day until she brought up a relationship with Leo, showing him the intimate photos they had taken in the village. Only then did the old eccentric show any interest. Her life as a double agent officially began. By this point, she could have already made a lot of money. But it wasn't enough. She wanted to help Leo break free from his own chains in her own way. If he became the young master of the Miller family, wouldn't his life change dramatically? So she poured all her energy into the Miller family. She built relationships, gained a voice, and earned Rick's approval. Uncovering the truth of the past was difficult. She had to piece together information from every corner. But she found it. Throughout this process, she kept a close eye on Leo. She knew everything, including the fact that he was being kept by Sugar Mama. But it didn't matter. She was playing a much bigger game. Perhaps it was because people who suffer in similar ways are on the same wavelength, but she had a premonition. When everything was finally revealed to Leo, she wouldn't even have to explain what she had done. She would just walk up to him with that same devil-may-care attitude of his and say, "I saved you this time, too." And Leo would be so moved, he'd break down in tears. She would show Summerlin what a real, adult relationship looked like. It was a beautiful idea, and she waited, according to plan, for her chance. She concocted a car crash scheme, presented it to Edward, and actively pushed for it to happen. After a long time, she finally approached Leo again and personally told him about the plan. Yes, leaking the plan to Leo was part of the plan. She wasn't sure she could get him to that location with just some flimsy excuse. But it didn't matter. Leo wouldn't get hurt. But Leo did get hurt. That was fine, too. She could explain everything. It would just be a little more complicated. But then Leo lost his memory. And everything went back to zero. The reality that lay before Leo was this. A malicious woman had used his trust to try and climb into a wealthy family, nearly getting him killed in the process. Everyone would think so, not just Leo. You say you were doing it for his own good? Who would believe you? The evidence of her actions was plain to see. The thing Payton envied most about the aliens in the three-body problem was their shared consciousness. If she were one of them, maybe all the things buried deep in her heart wouldn't have to be suppressed like a dormant volcano. A twisted truth cannot be proven. But Payton had always been dealt a bad hand, and she had learned to play it well. So, she didn't visit him once while he was in the hospital. Since she couldn't prove her intentions, she made a clean break with the past. She chose another path, retaining only the identity of cousin-in-law. It was a useful identity. It allowed her to help Leo within the family. And, on the other hand, it allowed for some thrilling, forbidden flirtation. Why else would she have brought up the idea of borrowing a stud? But decisiveness in action didn't mean peace of mind. In countless sleepless nights, she dreamed of the little village. A normal woman might have tearfully confessed everything, trying to pull them closer. But her ambitions had always been greater than that. Until she discovered she wasn't the only one trying to change Leo's life. Skylar Reed and Isabella Vance were two names she could never get around. One wanted to take him away. The other could offer him sanctuary. She began to regret it. Her method was wrong from the start. She shouldn't have done these things behind his back. But it was too late. But she wasn't going to say any of this because no one would believe her. So she chose the concert as her tomb. A silent tomb, where unsaid words were buried. Some things, even with restored memories, remain unclear. What Payton was thinking, what she did alone, none of that was in Leo's memory banks. Even with his memories back, he could only see her scheme as just that, a scheme. The facts were, she came to him, rambled about the Miller family, and told him to be at the scene of a car crash at a specific time. Even though Leo was the one who chose to hit the gas, he couldn't guess her motives from that brief interaction. So Leo didn't want to bring it up. It was pointless. Since you were willing to apologize with your life, I'll forgive you. But clearly, Payton couldn't get over it herself. They stood face to face in the hotel. Time flowed, space shifted. A spring morning in a small village, a windowless room with no light. A winter night in a city hotel, the bright lights of the bustling street making it hard to keep your eyes open. The old sewing machine and the 2009 pinup calendar had been replaced by a multilingual robot concierge. Leo saw the finality in Payton's eyes, so he nodded and said no more. All he could offer were two things, forgiveness and a new life. Payton's despair didn't come from his lack of forgiveness. She was regretting her past. If she had never tried to claw her way into the Miller family, would any of this have happened? She wouldn't have to live in the shadows, her reputation in tatters, whispered about as the woman who went from one cousin to the next. Gain and loss. Who can really say which is which? She hated the person she used to be. As for a new life, Leo could only offer so much. He wasn't some business mogul who needed an army of brilliant lieutenants. If she didn't want it, he wouldn't force her. The only thing Leo could do was reach out and wipe the tear from the corner of her eye. You have a long life ahead of you. Live it well. A hotel is a place of many meanings. A one-night stand seems intimate, but in this day and age, there's no guarantee the two people will ever see each other again. In its own way, it's a witness to farewells. And in this part of the world, farewells are always subtle and understated. I'm going, Leo said, turning and waving. Okay, Payton whispered, her eyes brimming with tears. The Miller family feud had swept up countless outsiders, and Payton was one of them. The great beast of the family remained unscathed. The Millers never lose. The only losers are the outsiders. In the end, Payton had to pay the price for her dark ambitions. The snow fell harder, her quiet sobs masked by the wind. A snowy night isn't just for homecomings. It's for departures, too. She watched his retreating back. She had to leave, too, to get out of Riverbend as fast as she could. A wild rose from the frozen north could never adapt to this warm place. It was time to say goodbye to this southern city for good. This was the last time she would ever see him. The night was a blade, swift and sharp. In this life, their paths would never cross again. Payton traveled light, buying a ticket for the slow train back north. It would take nearly 30 hours. It wasn't that she couldn't afford a plane ticket. She just had no idea what she was going to do. She might as well spend the time on the journey. She hadn't been on a train like this in a long, long time. It was the peak of the college winter break rush. The noisy carriage, the pungent smells. It all came rushing back. Payton's expression didn't change. This was the smell of memory. It was this same train that had brought her from the north to Riverbend 8 years ago. 8 years gone in a flash. It seemed she had brought nothing with her and was taking nothing away. College, the cosmetics company, the Miller family. As the train pulled away, those clear memories blurred into fuzzy images in her mind. But there was always one devil-may-care figure that remained stubbornly in focus. She could never forget him. From his perspective, it was probably best explained by the concept of sunk cost. Their strange, complicated history was something that could never be replicated. And what is more precious than something unique? Payton could understand why so many women orbited around him. People value different things, some money, some status. But no one denies the value of shared experience. Those precious experiences were the key that made it so hard for anyone to let go. Payton felt she was the only one who had voluntarily bowed out. Because of her past, her love was not honest enough, and her ambition was not pure enough. How could she ever explain it all to him? So, she had to make a clean break to leave completely. And she would start by becoming a village girl again. Train, bus, a shared ride in a private car. After a dizzying 30 hours, Payton finally arrived back in the small mountain village she hadn't seen in so long. Ice and snow had covered all traces of the past. Thankfully, she had bought a thick winter coat in the county seat, wrapping herself up tightly. The roads were empty. In the sub-zero temperatures, even the local gossips who usually gathered under the old locust tree were nowhere to be seen. She trudged through the snow, her fluffy boots crunching loudly. The old, rusty gate was still open. Night came early in the north. It was already dark by 5. Feeling the biting wind and hearing the distant barking of a dog, all Payton could think about was how she would stay warm tonight. In the countryside, they used coal stoves for heat, and no one would have lit one for her. But it didn't matter. She was prepared for it. Crossing the courtyard, she placed her hand on the doorknob. She heard her father shouting from inside. Experience told her he was probably drinking with his cronies. Payton silently rehearsed her lines. She would say she had a fight with her husband from the city and had come home for a while and would leave after the new year. To stop her dad from trying to set her up with someone, she couldn't say they were divorced. Just a fight. With that thought, Payton pulled open the icy door. A wave of heat washed over her. Just as she had expected, under the dim yellow light, her father was sitting with his drinking buddies, and Leo. Payton stared as if she were seeing a ghost at the familiar face holding a glass of liquor. No one paid her any attention, because Leo was currently sobbing, snot and tears streaming down his face. "Dad," he wailed, "I can't live like this anymore. We have one little argument, and she just up and leaves. Who could put up with that? Son-in-law, when she gets back, I'll give her a piece of my mind. Don't cry. Wah. I've been bottling up all this frustration, just waiting to come back here for the holidays and tell you everything. Don't cry, don't cry." Earl looked up wearily at his daughter, who had just walked in. "Look at how wrong this boy is. How could you just leave after a small argument?" Payton was at a loss for words. She strode over and poked Leo, trying to drag him into the other room to get some answers. But Leo clung to Earl's arm and wouldn't let go, crying injustice. "Look at her. Dad, you have to do something. She's going to hit me again." "Payton, look at you." Earl sighed. This kid was so annoying, just crying and whining. What a weakling. A grown man letting a woman push him around? But for the sake of 2 cartons of Marlboros and a bottle of Jack Daniels, Earl had to stand up for his son-in-law. "Payton, you can't be so willful. Look, he came all this way and remembered to bring your old man a gift. You came back empty-handed. Where are you going to find a son-in-law this good? You two talk it out and go back home and live a good life." Earl put down his glass, got up, and walked out, not forgetting to take the cigarettes and liquor Leo had brought with him into his own room. Payton stood with her arms crossed, glaring at Leo. Her head was spinning with questions. "How did you get here before me?" "I took a flight at 9 yesterday morning." "Which one did you take?" Leo was also puzzled. How had he beaten her here? "I took the train." "Damn, you're frugal. Why didn't you tell me you were coming? What if you ran away again?" Leo swayed as he stood up from the stool, nearly falling over. He really couldn't hold his liquor. Payton rushed over to steady him and immediately saw the black smudge on his face. It was all too familiar. "Did my dad make you light the stove? I wanted to try it myself. See? The room is warm, isn't it?" He pushed open the door, and the familiar scene reappeared before Payton's eyes. But this time, the room was warm. She took off her coat, laid Leo on the bed, and then began to fetch water and clean the room. It hadn't been lived in for a long time and was covered in dust. The moment she was back, she was living the village life again, the drunken husband and the housekeeping wife. When she had finished, she turned to look at Leo. Her eyes met his, which were bright and clear. "Leo, how did you know my exact address?" "It's not like I haven't been here before. Of course I know the address. You've been here, yes, but you forgot." Payton sat down on the edge of the bed, confused, then suddenly shot up. You remembered. Did no one tell you?" Leo was also a bit stunned. So Payton had no idea he had gotten his memory back? This small information gap seemed to have caused a massive misunderstanding. Leo thought back. He didn't think he had ever actually said it. He had a habit of skipping over the past. And for the first few days she was in the hospital, Dr. Shaw had been the one looking after her. He had just assumed Evelyn had told her. Who knew she was so tight-lipped? And Leo was used to Payton's incredible intelligence-gathering skills. He never had to say anything. She always found a way to know. "I'm not in the Miller family circle anymore. How would I know if you don't tell me?" Payton's voice was full of resentment. It all made sense now. Why couldn't Payton get over the past? Because with her complicated history, she had no way to explain it. But if Leo remembered everything, what was there to explain? "So you thought I knew everything all along?" Payton asked, looking up. Yeah. Then why did you still come looking for me? Misunderstandings happen. If Leo hadn't come this time, this one might have lasted a lifetime, ending with them on opposite sides of the country. Who said I came looking for you? Leo got out of bed and closed his eyes, walking around the room, following the lines of his memory. I just missed this place. The feeling was strange. Returning to a place from your memory gives you a sense of reunion. But when your memory has died and been reborn, and you return to find those same corners, the feeling is something else entirely. Miraculous. You sat here doing your makeup, wearing that red dress and flirting with me. Leo put his hand on his chin, like a detective solving a case. Payton looked away. Whether it was the nostalgia of the place or the joy of reunion, the volcano she had suppressed for so long began to rumble. It was precisely because she had spent so long in the world of power and fame that she felt it so deeply. Their connection wasn't some mystical soulmate collision. It was the tangible reality that one person had completely changed her life. I've always respected people's choices, Leo said, finally revealing his true purpose. I came here to fulfill a promise. Fulfill a promise? Payton looked up, confused. The night before the red dress dinner, I had a dream about your mother, Leo said softly. The dream had faded with time. All he remembered was a faint figure, a woman who had rarely left her village, wearing an old, flower-patterned coat. She had bowed over and over, pleading with him. She didn't ask for the things a normal mother would, like please be good to my daughter. She just kept repeating, Payton's had a hard life. I beg you please, just be a little patient with her in the future. You see, a person who has truly suffered doesn't even dare to wish for too much. Leo had promised her he would, and a promise is a promise. So after Payton chose to leave, Leo came back here alone. He bought some offering paper and joss ingots, and even burned a large paper villa for her. The northern air was dry and cold, the wind like a knife on his face. It hurt. Leo sat down in a snowbank and quietly told her spirit everything that had happened since they left the village. He told her, Annie, I over-delivered on my promise. She's free to choose her own life now. I just came to let you know. Leo didn't know if she heard him or not. But as he was burning the paper, the flames licked up and caught his sleeve. In the north, this was said to be a sign, a message of longing and reluctance to let go from the deceased. Leo, not being from the north, didn't know this. He just rolled around in the snow to put it out, leaving a black smudge on his face. I'm leaving tomorrow. You can stay here, Leo said, leaning back on the bed and staring at the ceiling. Payton took off her shoes, climbed onto the bed, and curled up against him. My social security number is... Why are you giving me your social security number? To buy a ticket. Payton fell silent, burrowing deeper into his arms. Oh no, you're tough, remember? You're going to stay away forever. Leo tilted his head and glanced at her. I was wrong, Payton whispered into his chest. You. That one simple phrase choked off the rest of Leo's words. The truth was, many people had a copy of the Leo Miller user manual. Even Rick knew that his son had a soft spot for women. Two simple words, I was wrong, could solve most problems with him. But the blue-eyed lady did not have a copy of this manual. Leo didn't press the issue. He closed his eyes, ready for sleep. The day had exhausted him. Don't sleep yet. It's the middle of the night. What are we going to do? Me? Payton pulled the covers over them. There was a rustling sound, and clothes began to fly out from under the blanket. A turtleneck sweater, fleece-lined leggings, lace under. A wicked hand tried to sneak over and feel, but Payton stopped it. She leaned close to his ear and whispered, Wait a minute. Wait for my dad to fall asleep. If I wait any longer, I'm going to be asleep. Leo was getting frustrated. Then you sleep first. Get your strength back. If I fall asleep now, it'll be morning when I wake up. Don't worry. I have my ways of waking you up. Somehow, she managed to pacify him. Sing me a song to help me sleep, Leo mumbled, his eyes heavy, restarting their little village tradition. Outside, the snow fell thick and fast. Inside, someone sang softly. The fierce wind howled through the cracks in the windows of the outer room, and the weak fire from the stove gave off a heavy smell of coal. The moon is bright, the wind is light, the leaves rustle at the window pane. Payton had never felt so at peace. She had felt it once before, a year ago, in this same village. It was a feeling few could understand. But it wasn't the village that gave her peace. It was the man lying beside her. From this moment on, there was nothing else in her life. No debts, no career, no powerful families. Only her heart, given to the one she loved. 20-some years ago, on a day just like this, in this same windowless room, a tearful village woman held her baby and softly sang a lullaby. The moon is bright, the wind is light, the the leaves rustle at the window pane. The crickets chirp, 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 just like the strings of a zither. The woman, whose life was tied to the earth, had no idea what the future held for the daughter in her arms. Her mind was filled with whether the well would have water tomorrow, whether she should buy a pound of apples at the market. Other things she had no say in. The only decision she ever made on her own was to reject names like Spring Phoenix or Bring a Brother. She named her daughter Payton, a name she had heard on a black and white television. A person who has suffered never asks for great wealth or fortune. Peace was the greatest wish. Was it a good name? And was Payton's life ever truly peaceful? Who knows? In any case, outside the window, the snow continued to fall. In the small, dark room, Leo woke up in a daze. In his dream, he had been swimming, but he was groggy and confused, completely forgetting where he was. Let there be light. Task 1, find a missing phone. Leo fumbled blindly on the pillow beside him until he found it. There was a missed call from Dave. He rubbed his tired eyes and called back. Hey, you called? Leo, just a reminder, don't forget the exam at 9 tomorrow morning. I completely forgot. I'll set an alarm. Leo started setting an alarm without even hanging up. He was on the verge of falling asleep again, an endless wave of drowsiness washing over him. Then he faintly heard a muffled voice. You, setting an alarm is useless. How are you going to get there tomorrow? Huh? Who's talking? Leo was instantly awake. He tried to sit up and discovered the person in the bed with him. It was Payton. He remembered. I'm at Payton's house. We were about to... Is your dad asleep? Uh-huh. Payton quietly slipped out from under the covers and turned on the light. She went to the wardrobe and began rummaging through it. Her thin nightgown did little to hide her graceful curves, especially as she inevitably bent and squatted to search. What are you looking for? Rigidity often leads to discomfort. My dress. Payton pulled out the red dress she had worn for their first dinner party, still in its sealed garment bag. Then she picked up her makeup bag and sat down in front of the mirror. I kept everything from that night. Seriously? You have to do this now. Leo was baffled. Payton shot him a beautiful eye roll from her chair. It's a long night. What's your hurry? It gets dark early here in the north. It's only a little after 7. But what are you doing? Making up for the regrets of that night. Payton crossed her legs and began to apply her eyeliner, glancing at Leo. A wedding has 3 parts: the pre-wedding dinner, the ceremony, and the wedding night. I can forget about the ceremony, but I should at least get the other 2, right? We can have a ceremony, Leo said. No, we can't. Payton shook her head, putting down her mirror and walking over to him. She spoke with a serious tone. My identity is too complicated. If you hold a ceremony with me, how could your father ever show his face in public? Imagine, the newly engaged fiancé of your son marries your nephew. Rick Miller would become a laughingstock. Who cares about him? Leo said dismissively. You might not care about his feelings, but I wouldn't feel good about it either. What would the Millers think of me? What will my future business partners think? And even if we completely disregard what society thinks, can we disregard what your mother thinks? Unless you want to live like a hermit, no one can exist outside of society. Payton was very clear-headed about this. She was long past the age of defining love as just kissing, cuddling, and being clingy. In a stable relationship, the most substantial thing is whether what you provide for each other is equal. A relationship might start with a spark of chemistry and a rush of hormones. But to maintain it in a healthy, long-term way, you need balance and effort. Otherwise, you'll just end up crying about fate being cruel. Payton was a smart woman. She could manage anything successfully. She knew that when 2 people's destinies are tied together, you can't treat the other person as an opponent in a game. You have to think about how to make your shared life better. Most couples go from loving to resentful because they start seeing each other as adversaries. And the things Leo could provide were all the most tangible things in a relationship: a business to support her, emotional value, a spiritual anchor, a pillar in her social network. And what could she give him? Payton shook her head. She could give him nothing. The fact was, she was still heavily dependent on him. But the best thing about them was that Leo would respect her, and she had self-awareness. The hardship of his first 20 years had forged Leo's character and abilities. And after the hardship ended, it brought him wealth and status. From any angle, Leo's hardware and software were top tier. So Payton would no longer clamor for a wedding ceremony. It would only bring negative consequences, trouble, and complications to their lives, with no real benefit. But Leo was impulsive, so she had to make it clear. Otherwise, in 3 days, a wedding limo might be parked outside her building. After all these years, to go from the village to Riverbend and end up here. I escaped the village. I can be with the person I love, and I don't have to worry about food or money. Isn't that lucky enough? Payton was trying to persuade Leo, but she had more to say. So, leave the wedding to someone else. There's no one like that in the real world, Leo said, shaking his head. He wanted to hear what was really in her heart. Payton smoothed out her dress. It's true, no one will be willing to do this. If I were Skylar or Isabella, I could never say these words. But I'm Payton. She sat on the edge of the bed, leaning against the headboard as she trimmed her nails. Since my memories can return, it means theirs can too. It's just a matter of time. The fact that you came all the way out to the village to find me is definitely because of your memories. Otherwise, a man like you, when faced with a farewell, has a heart harder than iron. So, my today might be there tomorrow. Your bond with them might be even deeper. What will you do then? Will you choose between me and them? I can't guarantee you'll choose me. So, the best way is to accept it from the very beginning. Payton smiled bitterly. Who would be willing to accept a sharing situation? Anyone who said they would was lying. Love itself is a possessive thing, unless you don't love them and you're just after something else. But their situation was just too unique. Publicly, their identities would attract unnecessary gossip. Privately, Leo wanted them all, and this emotional war had gone on for so long that no one was going to give up easily. As a mature woman, Payton had long been prepared for this. The decision wasn't hard for her. In fact, she had to convince Leo. Leo, you have to accept one fact. It's not that you can't find a girl who wants a quiet life. It's that any woman who wanted a stable, loving life was eliminated from this twisted battle long ago, without even knowing it. The ones who were left, none of them are built for a normal life. While Payton got ready, Leo stepped out into the yard to get a breath of fresh air. It was freezing. He was getting a profound, first-hand lesson in what a blizzard felt like. But the cold couldn't extinguish the fire burning inside him. The fact that he was here proved he was ready to accept Payton, all of her. Logically, he shouldn't have made the decision so hastily. The responsible thing to do would be to wait until his memory was fully restored. When you boiled it down, their story was about a woman at the end of her rope who chose to be ruthless, and a high-end escort who inexplicably managed to open her heart. Payton's emotional journey was complete. She could list a dozen moments when her heart had skipped a beat for him. But what about Leo? For him, who exactly was Payton? He'd been wrestling with these questions the entire way here. He could have fulfilled his promise any time. What was it that had compelled him to race here, non-stop, to stop her from leaving? The stage for the red dress dinner must have been right about here. Leo walked across the snow-covered yard, tracing the memory of the scene, try to find the exact spot. In the corner of the yard, he could still see the faded, papery remnants of confetti poppers. That damn lazy old Earl, he thought. It's been over a year, and he still hasn't cleaned it up. Some images are worth remembering for a lifetime. By the time Leo had completed a circuit of the yard, leaving a trail of footprints in the snow, a decision had quietly settled within him. He was taking on another responsibility. For Leo, if it was just about sleeping with women, he'd probably have a body count in the hundreds by now. It wasn't just the new, rich Leo Miller. Even the old dirt kicker Leo hadn't lacked for opportunities. He just hated complications. Anyone who thought responsibility was a trivial thing had clearly never been responsible for anything. I'm done with my makeup, Payton said, pushing the door open and standing shyly in the doorway. You look beautiful, Leo said, standing in the wind and snow, just like you did on the night of the red dress dinner. Payton didn't speak, just stood quietly by the iron gate, the gold pins in her hair trembling slightly. Was the sacrifice she was making that great? Not really. If Leo truly wanted it, there were plenty of women who would make the same sacrifices to marry into the Miller family. So, Payton had always known that from a worldly or even emotional perspective, she wasn't unique to Leo. But tonight, she wanted to be the only one. As Leo walked over and swept her up into his arms, their faces met, their lips sharing warmth against the icy air. The iron gate swung shut, leaving only the hem of her red dress to sway gently in the wind. Don't take it off, he murmured against her. I want the dress. On the bed, neither of them mentioned turning off the lights. Payton had spent all that time on her makeup tonight precisely to be seen. Turning off the lights would have been a waste. Lying on the bed, Payton stroked Leo's back and whispered in his ear, "Tell me the truth. That night at the dinner, did you have thoughts about me? You were screaming your head off in my imagination. How loud? How do I even describe it?" To recreate the scene, Payton let out a simulated theatrical scream. Was it that loud? Louder? Screaming my throat raw? Couldn't keep my legs together. Payton's voice was a devil's whisper, a constant temptation in his ear. Or maybe, rolling her eyes back. Payton in a traditional gown was the embodiment of contrast. Above the classic silk was a devastatingly beautiful face. Above that, the trembling gold hairpins, and below, bare feet. Beneath the exquisite makeup, her skin was visible, braless. She wasn't getting married today. She put on this dress purely as a costume for him. Tears streamed down Payton's face. She had finally waited for this day. The price of the storm was that it had left her in a state even more ravaged than she'd imagined. Her eyes lost focus. Her scattered thoughts drifted back to the day of the red dress dinner. When she had stepped out of the limousine motorcade that day, she'd been in a daze. The ridiculously wealthy Leo Miller had basically organized a wedding. He didn't understand the local traditions of a pre-wedding dinner, but he understood how to spend money. The entire process was like a marriage ceremony, complete with photographers, celebratory cannons, and pyrotechnics. As gazes of astonishment and envy fell upon her, she stepped out of the car, supported by Leo. In a small town like this, even a real wedding probably didn't have this much pomp. That day, the entire village was saying that Payton had married a good man. An amazing man. Look at the groom's family, they'd say. That man with the little ponytail has so much class. You can tell he's from the city. That day, Earl couldn't stop grinning. A strange feeling, popping like fireworks, echoed in Payton's heart. The respect she had searched for her entire life had finally been realized in this tiny mountain village. The part of her heart that felt like a bottomless pit was filled by the thunderous applause. What are you even supposed to buy when you have so much money? Payton asked, holding Leo's hand, unable to stop herself. Buy a sunny day, then buy a rainy one, Leo said, spouting poetic nonsense. What does that mean? It means you buy whatever the hell you want. Like right now. Whether it's tacky or a good deal, who gives a damn? If you want it, you buy it, Leo said with a grin. He then trotted off like a little punk to hand out cigarettes to the old-timers. Payton watched his retreating figure, a wave of emotion welling up in her chest. How could she ever repay this man, who was as brilliant and fleeting as a firework? Leo is a fundamentally good person. That had been Payton's conclusion from the very beginning. But if you told Leo he was good, he'd just say, get real. I was born a bad seed, like when he was handing out cigarettes and had to look up to offer one to a guy who was nearly 6'6". Hey man, you smoke. I do, but I'm your junior, man. Give it back. Leo snatched the cigarette back in front of everyone. But later, when no one was looking, he secretly stuffed the whole pack into the young man's pocket. He told her later, if I don't let him smoke, he's just going to do it back at school anyway. His dad can't stop him, so how could I? Might as well give him an expensive pack, so he can show off a little. Payton had just shaken her head with a wry smile. That was Leo. You could never understand his actions, nor what kind of pleasure he derived from them. But he did enjoy it, just like he enjoyed helping her in this little village. He wasn't after anything. He was just enjoying himself. At that moment, Payton had desperately wanted to say something, and not just because of the romantic atmosphere or the fireworks. She loved him. She loved him of that moment. But she knew that Leo was destined for an extraordinary life. Why should a person like him drift through life in a daze? But what could she do? She could stay with him. In that small, crowded village, all she could see was barren land and grassroots. The clumsy MC they'd hired from the county seat was reading congratulatory remarks. Don't ask why a pre-wedding dinner had an MC. Because the ridiculously wealthy Leo Miller had paid for everything that could possibly show off his wealth. It was all about the spectacle. At that bizarre dinner, the MC had asked her, does the groom have anything to say to the bride? Leo had grinned and said, eat well, drink well, and live forever. Behind him, Payton had pinched the soft flesh of his waist. The MC hadn't expected someone to be so absurd at a wedding-like event. He turned to Payton. Does the bride have anything to say to the groom? Payton said, just that he should cheat on me less in the future. She had no choice but to play along. The old folks in the village certainly wouldn't understand their brand of humor, but Leo gave her a thumbs up. But Payton had something she needed to say to Leo alone. In that instant, the scene seemed to warp. In her vision, the small village transformed into the towering skyscrapers of Riverbend. No one knew what Leo would face in the future. The history of those powerful families wasn't even a story to him. He'd never even heard it. But Payton knew, so there were still many things she could do. Through all the storms, she could still be by his side. But how could she express it abstractly? How could she say, no matter what happens, I'll always be with you. I'm your woman in life, your ghost in death. That was the sentiment, but it was too cheesy. She couldn't bring herself to say it. So she leaned close to Leo's ear and whispered. She said, in this life, it will only ever be you and me. Leo's expression at the time was one of confusion. He didn't understand the sudden, deeply affectionate confession. Payton didn't explain further. because sooner or later, he would understand. At the concert, when Payton was stabbed, she lay in a pool of blood, murmuring softly. In this life, Leo had leaned in close to hear what she was saying. When those words reached him, memories flooded in like an open dam. His face contorted in pain as he clutched his head, lost in a frenzy. And so, full circle, back in the small mountain village. When the storm had finally passed, Payton curled up in Leo's arms. She had finally given everything she had left to the man she loved most, along with her beautiful dream of it only ever being you and me. Exhausted, she was about to fall asleep, as if from a pleasant dream. Her sleep talk was a series of broken whispers. In this, Leo sat beside her and silently pulled the covers over her. His body trembled without a sound as he leaned close to her ear and whispered, "Okay." The mountain village was silent. Not everything in this world needs a loud noise to attract attention. Some things are as quiet as the silent tears of the man on the bed and the last dying embers in the stove. Burning. A warm fire. It's over. It's all over. Watching Leo pace back and forth in the room, wringing his hands in despair, Payton couldn't help but stifle a laugh as she kneaded dough on the cutting board. Even Earl was puzzled. His son-in-law had been sighing and looking miserable since the crack of dawn. What was wrong? Payton, is Leo having trouble at work? Or is something wrong at home? He's going to flunk a class. Flunk? What's flunk? Earl scratched his head, completely confused. He had personally witnessed the spectacle of the red dress dinner. That was real money. He remembered his hands trembling when he shook Leo's father's hand. The man had a real presence. Leo was definitely destined for big things, so what could possibly have him this stumped? Thinking of this, Earl asked worriedly, "How big of a deal is flunking?" "It's like working for 6 months for free," Payton said with a soft chuckle. "Oh my God." Earl was shocked. 6 months for free? All because he was delayed by this trip home? Amnesia. Payton nodded, a faint smile on her face, which was bare of makeup. After crossing that final threshold, she exuded more and more of a wifely aura. Earl realized the gravity of the situation. Leo couldn't lose money. If he lost money, would Earl still get to smoke his fancy Marlboros? "Payton, you can't keep messing around. Look how much this trip has cost him. It's too late to go back now, so there's no way to fix it." Earl looked even more anxious than Leo. Although his motives weren't pure, he was genuinely worried for his son-in-law. "I can't fix him flunking a class," Payton said, "but I can fix some other things." As she said this, her eyes glanced at her phone, which had just received a reply. She mysteriously walked into her room and made a call. "Hello, Ms. Vance?" Isabella Vance had been buried in work lately. Pouring all her energy into her career was a good thing. At least the money was good. But her quality of life was another story. Neck pain, back pain, frayed nerves. No major problems, but a constant stream of minor ones. But she had money. If her quality of life was poor, she could just find a way to improve it. She had gone through 3 housekeepers. The first was from Boston, an expert in classic New England cuisine. Her housekeeping skills were all up to par. But Isabella felt something was wrong. The house was still too cold, too quiet. Outside of her duties, the woman barely spoke to her. The house felt exactly the same. She had to go. The second was a cheerful, extroverted woman. After hearing Isabella's abstract requirements, the agency decided to find someone more talkative. "You think it's quiet? Fine, I'll find you chatterbox." In addition to basic housekeeping, the second woman had an extra task, making conversation. What else was a housekeeper supposed to talk about besides neighborhood gossip? A 7-year-old kid in the neighborhood went missing today. This gated community is huge. The security guard said when they found him, he was in the woods behind the house making out with a classmate. The housekeeper chattered on. Isabella clutched her head and turned away. "Ma'am, please be quiet." This one had always been difficult to please. The second housekeeper was also let go. At this moment, Isabella was standing in her living room, watching the third housekeeper tidy up. This woman had learned from her predecessor's mistakes. She spoke when spoken to and was silent otherwise. But Isabella still didn't want to keep her. She was too obedient, like a puppet. It still felt like something was missing. Just before receiving Payton's call, she had just hung up with a housekeeping agency. The manager, after hearing her demands, had said only one thing. "Ms. Vance, with all due respect, these 3 women have never received a single negative review. You don't have anyone else. Based on your standards, you might have to look elsewhere for a suitable candidate." "Where?" "A dating agency." Isabella had slammed the phone down. Then she answered Payton's call. She knew what this woman was calling about. "To buy or bar." "Hello, Ms. Vance. Not for sale." Payton had just messaged her on WhatsApp, asking if the Afterglow Lounge was for sale. From a business standpoint, selling it didn't matter. It was just a bar she ran for fun. From a personal standpoint, she didn't want to sell, because she hated all of them, Payton included, equally. Ms. Vance, everything is negotiable. Won't you at least talk about it? I don't need the money. Then do you need people? What do you mean by that? Isabella's tone was hostile. Let me be more specific. Do you need a man? Payton's expression didn't change. What I need or don't need has nothing to do with you. Leo is the real owner of the bar. I'm just helping him run it. The Afterglow was located right by the university, a perfect fit for all his needs. As for whether Isabella would agree, the maid contract needs the right opportunity, too. From what I understand, you two don't even have a way to contact each other right now. You told him everything that happened that night. The secret of her drunken night was out. Isabella immediately went on the attack. My lips are sealed. Are you threatening me with this? Payton sighed and rubbed her forehead. Some people just couldn't be taught. Did she have to hold her hand through everything? Your bar isn't getting any of your attention anyway. Just transfer it to me, to Leo, at a normal price. Won't he owe you a favor? Then, instead of calling in that favor, you offer him the maid contract. How do you think Leo will feel? Does he even need the maid contract? Payton tried her best to be patient. Isabella fell silent at her words. After a long pause, she finally spoke slowly. I'll give him the bar for free. How about that? Just trust me this once. No. The last time I mentioned being his maid, he said he wasn't interested. I'm not bringing it up again. Are you getting used to a life without Leo? Payton asked tentatively, seeing Isabella's firm stance. In this world, who can't live without whom? All right then. Payton put down her phone, sighing in resignation. If the Afterglow could be transferred, it would kill two birds with one stone. Leo would get a bar that met all his criteria, and Isabella could re-establish a connection with him. As for why Payton was actively helping Isabella, that was a matter of a woman's cunning. Her cousin-in-law was a natural-born master of palace intrigue, and that wasn't just a joke. If Isabella continued to be this proud and stubborn, the position of wife would probably be snatched up by Willow. Not an emotional wife, but a legal one. It involved a massive inheritance. It was too early to discuss heirs, but Payton still didn't want a situation where one person held all the power. She wasn't competing, nor was she qualified to, but she had to ensure her own position was stable. So, from any angle, Isabella was a top-tier player. Getting her back on the board meant no one would have a monopoly. Payton wouldn't interfere with Leo's actual romantic choices. A smart person knows where the boundaries are. She was only responsible for making sure everyone had a chance to play. Payton even secretly fantasized if I were in charge, I'd make sure everyone got an equal share. Payton was still trying to wear her down. That was the name of the game in business. If the first try doesn't work, try a second. If the second doesn't work, a third. Stop bothering me. Isabella was already annoyed by the sight of these women, especially after learning that Payton had taken a knife for Leo and that he had recovered that part of his memory. That made her even more irritated. She didn't dare think too deeply about certain things. What had a person like Payton, who would climb any ladder you gave her, been up to these past few days? She couldn't even imagine. Out of sight, out of mind. As for Leo opening a bar, fine. Let him come and talk to her himself. What was Payton thinking, being the one to talk to her? And as for Payton's earlier suggestion, impossible. Absolutely impossible. Isabella put down her phone and wandered aimlessly around the room, under the pretext of observing the new housekeeper's work. The new housekeeper was doing an excellent job. She had only just gotten out of bed, and the room was spotless. But she still felt something was missing. What it was, she didn't know. All she knew was that she still couldn't accept having a housekeeper in the house. There was nothing wrong with her. In fact, in many details, Leo couldn't compare to this professional housekeeper. But she just felt uncomfortable. Ma'am, you don't need to come in tomorrow, Isabella said softly, leaning on the staircase railing. Her tone of voice was so cold that even a normal conversation could feel distant. Mrs. Lou, the housekeeper, was a bit stunned. The agency had told her this woman was difficult to please, so she had been on edge all day, working diligently and not saying a word. Why was she still being fired? Ma'am, if I may be so bold as to ask, what was the reason? It's nothing, ma'am. It's not your fault. I have a bonus for you. Isabella slowly walked down the stairs and held out a prepared envelope. But halfway there, she stopped. Ma'am, do you accept training? What kind of training? The housekeeper was puzzled but nodded. This employer paid very well. Isabella immediately picked up her phone and called Payton back. The bar can be transferred, but I have a condition. Name it. Leo has to train the new housekeeper. Huh. Payton was genuinely stunned by that. No matter how capable Leo was, he was no match for a professional housekeeper. When did it become his turn to train them? I'll ask him what he thinks about this condition. Payton walked out of the room and looked at Leo, who was sitting by the stove, still pleading with his professor. I want to take over Isabella's bar, but she has a condition. The afterglow, right? Leo put down his phone and thought for a moment. The location was indeed perfect. More importantly, if Payton had chosen it, it meant it was suitable. What's the condition? Let's hear it. At this moment, although only 2 people were on the phone for listening, Leo and Payton in the small mountain village. Mrs. Lou and Isabella in the villa. Isabella was actually happy to hear Leo's voice, but her tone turned cold again, because Leo and Payton were together. The blue-eyed woman said coolly, "You need to train the housekeeper, just like you used to work." "My skills are nowhere near professionals," Leo said softly, fiddling with a pot lid. "But the feeling is different. I've changed 3 housekeepers, and I still can't find that feeling." "What exactly is the situation? Tell me." "The first one came, and the house felt cold and empty. The second one I found too noisy, and the current one, Mrs. Lou, is too obedient." This was Isabella's true feeling. No matter what, she felt uncomfortable. Payton, listening on the other end, was stunned. This Isabella was a nightmare to please. Nothing was ever right. Mrs. Lou had the same thought, but neither of them dared to say it. "What does this have to do with training the housekeeper? Aren't you just being difficult?" Leo was blunt, giving her no face. Payton tugged at his hand, signaling him to be gentle, that they were the ones asking for a favor. Even Mrs. Lou's palms were sweating, thinking she was about to get caught in the crossfire. This employer had a terrible temper. But after hearing Leo's words, Isabella paused for a moment. In that instant, Mrs. Lou saw a smile on her face. But upon noticing Mrs. Lou was there, Isabella quickly wiped it away. "Just tell me if you can meet my request through training or not. Why don't you just ask me to come work for you for 2 days?" Leo asked, cutting to the heart of the matter. "I don't need you. I can't afford you," Isabella said through gritted teeth. "I could probably do it," Leo said, brushing the dust off his pants and taking the phone. He asked a strange question. "How old is the housekeeper?" "Around 50. "Then you should just adopt her as your mother." Leo's expression wasn't teasing. He was being serious. "Leo, I'm not kidding." "I'm not kidding either," Leo said, clearing his throat. "Wake up, Isabella. What you need isn't a housekeeper." "Then what do I need?" "You want family in your home." Leo could picture the layout of Isabella's house with his eyes closed. A vast, empty living room, where even the air was filled with loneliness. What was the feeling she was looking for? Someone existing in the house with you, who makes you feel neither lonely nor annoyed. Why was she unhappy with the obedient Mrs. Lou, but felt better when Leo talked back to her? Isabella wasn't a masochist. She just needed the presence of family, because family doesn't always agree with you. Leo found the world to be a strange place. Some people slept in mansions, while others struggled to escape from remote villages. The one in the mansion wanted a family. The one from the village had just found one. Either adopt her as your mother, or I'll come serve you for a couple of days. You choose. Leo hung up immediately. He knew Isabella had already made her choice in her heart, but would argue stubbornly about it. "I'm busy. I don't have time to listen to her argue." Leo was already stressed to death about flunking his class. He'd barely passed last year. Was he going to be stuck in college forever? Is it that bad? A little. Payton took his hand and led him back to the room. Leo thought she was going to say something to him, but Payton said nothing. She simply took the scrunchie from her wrist and tied up her hair. No more being upset. Okay, flunking a class might sound like a small thing, at least to Payton, so she didn't quite understand why Leo was so miserable. "My mom is definitely going to think I wasn't studying properly." "Doesn't your mom know you've been fighting with the Miller family?" "What does that have to do with whether I was studying or not?" Leo had a strange stubbornness about this. When a person is stubbornly attached to something, there's always a reason. When Leo was young, he had often suggested dropping out after middle school to work and earn money. Even with public school, there were still a lot of miscellaneous fees. But his mom had adamantly refused. Continuing his education was her bottom line. Leo had talked to his mom about this many times. So, after all these years, even though things had changed, Leo subconsciously still wanted to be seen as a proper student in his mother's eyes. Because for that goal, his family had once endured a very difficult time. "Even if my grades aren't great, I can't flunk," Leo said, leaning against the bed and dialing his professor's number again. "Professor, is there really nothing that can be done?" "There's a way, provided you at least show up for the exam. If you're a no-show, what can I do?" "Isn't there such a thing as a make-up exam? For example, if you miss it due to a major unforeseen event." "What major unforeseen event did you have?" The professor's question stumped Leo. He subconsciously looked up at Payton lying on the bed. I took some time off to get married. Does that count? You got married? I guess. I heard you can get extra credit for getting married in college. Our university doesn't have that policy. The professor was clearly still processing the surprise. He barely even remembered what this student, Leo, looked like. But he didn't know who he was, because he had seen students who occasionally skipped class and students who skipped a lot of classes. But a student who almost never came to class? He had only seen one, and it was Leo. Let me ask, is your wife Skylar Reed? The professor had clearly heard some of the campus gossip. Professor, if you can help me figure something out, I'll tell you. In that case, I won't ask. Leo hung up the phone, dejected, and started thinking about buying a ticket back to campus. On the other end of the line, Professor Martin was not so calm. As an old gossip, he loved hearing about student drama. Why does everyone love celebrity gossip? Because everyone knows the celebrities, which makes it more interesting. Leo wasn't a celebrity at school, but Skylar Reed was. Professor Davies, is Skylar Reed in your class getting married? Professor Martin called Skylar's academic advisor. Professor Davies was also bewildered. He knew Skylar was taking a leave of absence next year. Was she taking a break to get married? But a wedding would be over in a month at most. Why take a whole year off? Professor Davies stroked the few remaining strands of hair on his balding head. A bold guess suddenly formed in his mind. Is she taking a leave of absence to have a baby? Professor Davies had no intention of prying into his students' private lives. He was a man of high moral character and had to maintain an image of a respectable teacher in his students' eyes. Until, after holding it in for 5 minutes. Ben, do you keep in touch with Skylar Reed from our class? Professor Davies finally couldn't hold it in anymore and chose to take a roundabout way to ask the class president. Ben, the class rep, was also clueless. She doesn't really talk to any of the guys in our class, but she's pretty close with Leo Miller from the management department. I know that. Have they actually gotten together? Advisor, by gotten together, do you mean dating? It seems like it. I mean, are they already talking about marriage? That, I really don't know. Ben started scratching his head. He was in the library preparing for his last exam. Ben, I have to criticize you for this. As a class president, how can you not know what's going on with your classmates? Advisor, should I go ask? I'm not the type to gossip. It's normal to care about your classmates. After getting the rundown, Ben put down his phone, muttering a few bad words about his advisor. Then he walked toward a corner by the window, not far away. Skylar Reed and Willow Shung happened to be in the library. Skylar was slouched over the table, playing a mindless game on her phone. She was bored out of her mind. She was only here to keep her best friend company. After all, her best friend was a diligent student who loved to study. Willow sat ramrod straight in her chair, silently engrossed in a large book. Suddenly, as if sensing something, she opened her eyes. Where do you think Leo went? Aren't you here to study? Skylar immediately scolded her friend, but after a moment, she too lowered her head and whispered, Yeah, where did he go? Why don't you ask him? You're the fiancé. You can't even keep an eye on your own fiancé. What am I supposed to do? Willow sighed, slumping onto the table and fiddling with the hair at her temples. I wouldn't say anything about who he goes to see, as long as he just lets me know. Willow, that statement is a little dangerous. Am I misunderstanding you? I don't want to be like this either, but I can't help it. Willow was beginning to accept her persona as the cute idiot. A quiet, obedient girl isn't an idiot. She's just reserved. A true idiot has to do something genuinely foolish. The submissive Willow, in her quest for love, had gone through 2 transformations. First, from never having held hands to sleeping in the same bed, complete with tube tops and footsie. Second, from barely sleeping in the same bed to a full-blown engagement party in front of friends and family, where she was now accepted as Leo's future wife. From Willow's own perspective, in just 1 month, she had gone from a college girl to a prospective wife. These 2 transformations had made it difficult for her to turn back, even if she wanted to. Not to mention, she didn't want to turn back at all. Willow didn't even dare to imagine what she would do if she had another transformation. It turned out that self-proclaimed bad girls like Payton and Evelyn Shaw were far from her level, because a villain's scheming was no match for an idiot's flash of inspiration. Willow, why can't you be a little tougher? Skylar's inner actress took over, a battle-ready expression on her face. You should just tie Leo up and tell him he's not allowed to leave the room until you have twins. But it takes 10 months to have a baby. Exactly. You battle him for 10 consecutive months, until the sight of a woman makes his knees tremble. You're being too fanciful. The best way to lock down a man is to drain him dry. Skylar advised with great authority. Skylar, I don't get you. Are you my enemy or... Willow truly couldn't understand her best friend's motives for giving her advice. Of course, I'm your best friend, Skylar said, patting her chest confidently. Then you and Leo in the future. Who knows what the future holds? I just know it's fun to help you come up with plans. Skylar, you'll help me, right? Of course, we're best friends. In the midst of their conversation, Ben, the class rep, arrived. Excuse me, sorry to bother you. Skylar, can we talk alone for a minute? No, my husband will beat me up if I talk to a man alone. He said next time I'll pull out my teeth and use them as tea pets. This kind of long, convoluted, and absurd sentence came out without a moment's hesitation. Ben nodded and continued. I wanted to ask, are you already married? Just engaged, but I'm pregnant with twins. It took me and Leo a full 10 months to conceive. This was the advice Skylar had just given her best friend, which she immediately used for herself. As long as it was fun, who cared? Ben turned and left, pulling out his phone to call his advisor. Professor, I got the scoop. Professor, I don't like gossip, but since you've called, you might as well tell me. She's indeed engaged, and she's pregnant with twins. Northwood University had an unexpected visitor. Rick Miller. He still looked the same, a little roguish in his old leather jacket. He had just come from the university president's office. His son had called him and asked for a favor. No one knew how much Rick had longed for this call. He dreamed of his son taking the initiative to ask him for help with something. Even if it was to pluck the stars or the moon from the sky, he would have tried to find a way. Rick, do me a favor. Anything, son. Call my professor and tell him you were in a car crash this morning and almost died. I was taking care of you, so I missed the exam. Beg him for a makeup test. Son, are you calling me to ask me to die? The dead excuse is more authoritative, but a dead person can't make phone calls, so let's stick with a car crash. Son, wait, you flunked a class and you want a makeup exam, right? So you'll have to die a little. Son, I have other ways to do this. Can I not die? That works too, but if your method doesn't work, I'm going to have to trouble you to die a little. Just you watch. Just one fail class. Did he, Rick Miller, really need to personally die for that? Rick walked into Professor Martin's office. He sat down and got straight to the point. Professor Martin, my second brother passed away this morning. That's Leo's uncle. Rick sat in front of Professor Martin, wiping his eyes. It looked suspiciously like a smile. My condolences, Professor Martin said after sitting down. But the students all know I'm a strict teacher. I can't make exceptions. Hearing this, Rick's expression changed immediately. He leaned forward, looking into the professor's face. I just had a word with President Matthews. The school's endowment. Mr. Miller, please have some tea. The matter of the failed class is easily settled. I'll skip the tea. Just don't let my son flunk. Rest assured, not only will your son not flunk, but he won't even need to take a leave of absence if he gets married. You don't need to worry about his grades. A leave of absence to get married? Rick was stunned. How did he not know his son was taking a leave of absence to get married? To whom? To Willow Shum? His son never told him anything. Rick felt helpless, but the talk of marriage piqued his curiosity. Did my son mention this at school? Rick asked, leaning in. There are some rumors around campus that Leo is already engaged. That part is correct. Rick nodded. His son was indeed engaged. Then congratulations in advance on becoming a grandfather, Mr. Miller. To have twins is a true blessing. Rick pointed at himself. Me? I'm going to be a grandfather? To twins. Is your information reliable? Rick's expression was serious. This scared Professor Martin. He had heard it from Skylar Reed's advisor, who said the class president had confirmed the news himself. But it seemed Leo's father didn't know. This was bad. He had said too much. Leo was going to hate him for this. Mr. Miller, my source might be mistaken. It's all just hearsay. Keep talking. No, Mr. Miller, that's all I know. Professor Martin was no fool. He couldn't continue down this path. The bearer of secrets gets burned on both ends. But the more he dodged, the more certain Rick became that there was something to it. Engaged and pregnant. Who could it be? Of course, it had to be Willow. Rick left the school and sat in his car, pondering how to handle this. Call his son and ask. Rick shook his head. His son definitely wouldn't want to talk about it. Their father-son relationship could only be described as one-sided. The father's wishful thinking, the son's reluctance. But no matter what, he was still the father. He had to help his son solve his problems. Rick had been a rich young master in his youth, so when he tried to think like a young person, he subconsciously used that mindset. He had also messed around a lot when he was young. What else was a young master supposed to do? No one was watching you. The only thing that was a big deal was getting a girl pregnant. That would get you a scolding back home, because back then, the family was very strict about heirs. So Rick subconsciously assumed that his son was also too afraid to tell the family. And his son wasn't afraid of Rick yelling at him. He was afraid of his mother. No sooner said than done. Rick immediately called Diane. Hey, honey, do you remember Wynn's daughter? I remember. Willow. She came over to the house a while back. They're engaged, aren't they? Engaged? Diane interrupted, pressing. Wasn't that just something the old man said? Did they have an engagement ceremony? They did. There was only silence on the other end of the line. A raging storm isn't scary. It's the ripple in the calm that's terrifying. Diane's voice was filled with emotion. Were both of Willow's parents at the engagement party? Yes. At such a big event, was my son the only one there without his parents? I'm asking you, what do other people think of him? Doesn't his heart ache? I was actually there. I just got there a little late, but you're right, I didn't consider. This is all your fault. Rick Miller, Diane said calmly, making Rick bow his head in guilt. I'm guilty, I admit it. But right now, we're talking about our son. Since they're engaged, we should discuss it with him. What's there to talk about? We might need to hurry things up, because Willow is pregnant. This time, Diane was silent for a full 5 minutes before speaking again. Then what are you waiting for? Go talk to Wynn about the wedding right now. But I haven't asked our son what he thinks. What if he doesn't want to accept it? He doesn't want to accept it. Diane said only those 4 words. But Rick felt an inexplicable pressure from them, greater than any he had felt facing down thugs on the street in his youth. I never meddle in things like flirting, dating, or breaking up. But that girl is pregnant. He has to accept it, whether he wants to or not. That was the last thing Diane said before hanging up. In the small mountain village, the snow continued to fall. I can finally keep my good student persona in my mom's heart, Leo said, standing in the yard with a scarf on, his breath turning to mist in the air. It's hard to imagine that a guy with such a bad track record, his greatest wish is to maintain a persona in his mom's heart, Payton said, dragging her luggage out of the yard. Sometimes when I drink too much, I don't even want to go home, just so my mom won't see me. Then when you drink too much in the future, you can stay in my place. Payton slanted a look at him, testing the waters. For a vague relationship like theirs, there were no standards for many daily things. It wasn't like a real married couple living together. So everything needed to be explored and fought for. Payton felt that just asking for some after-drinking time was enough for now. I can't stay if I'm not drunk, Leo retorted. Payton didn't speak, just smiled sweetly and linked her arm through his. Then I'll just wait for the king's summons at any time. How about right now? Leo said, swaying his scarf-clad neck. It's cold outside. Your boat will freeze. Payton pinched his arm and rolled her eyes. Just bear with it. It'll be quick. In this weather, the water will turn to ice in 30 minutes. You'd better be talking about tap water. After taking that final step, the mature, womanly charm that belonged to Payton was fully released. We just said goodbye to your dad. Isn't it bad to go back and do this kind of thing? Payton stood on her tiptoes, whispering in his ear, her warm breath tickling him. There's no one in the snowy woods. The journey back to Riverbend was still long, but was far from quiet. Payton and Leo talked a lot. About the future. Leo, you're the only heir left. Are you sure you don't want to take over the Miller family? The old man never intended for me to take over anyway, Leo said, dozing off on the swaying bus. He knows it's hard to change my mind, so he set his sights on my future son. The patriarch's final move wasn't hard to guess. Leo figured the old man had a 2-pronged plan from start. If Leo came back obediently, great. If not, he'd leave it to Leo's son. After all, Rick and Frank were only in their 40s. They'd be around long enough to see Leo's son grow up. Isn't the old man afraid he'll produce another rebellious kid, just like you? That's why he specified Willow Shung's child, Leo said, turning over. Her mother, grandmother, and grandfather are all from prominent families. No matter what, the kid won't have a dirt-kicker personality like mine. Leo had no sense of belonging to the family solely because of his 20 years living like a nobody. But his and Willow's child would be different. Your environment shapes your personality. Have you already decided to have a child with Willow? Hell no. If she wants to be the fiancé, let her. For her, dragging it out without a resolution is the best resolution. It wasn't that Leo was a scumbag, deliberately stringing her along. Hadn't he rejected her enough? Every time he rejected her, Willow would just have another meltdown, a scorched earth move that hurt her more than it hurt him. Giving her the cold shoulder was the best method he could think of. Won't the family demand you get married? Who's going to demand it? Rick or Frank? Leo snorted and turned away. Whoever tries to force me to get married, I'll just turn around and slap them. The patriarch was dead. Leo no longer had to answer to anyone. But Payton felt things wouldn't unfold so peacefully. She had faith in Leo's strange magnetic field for chaos. Even Willow, who seemed the most normal, wasn't acting very normal anymore. Payton didn't delve too deep into their relationship problems. Rule number 3 in the Leo Miller user manual. You can ask, you can offer suggestions, but don't try to change him. She changed the subject. So what are your plans for the future? Just go to school. I'm very busy. I have to continue college. take over the lounge, and run a business. Finishing college was a personal goal for Leo. He had to get that bachelor's degree. Even though he didn't know a thing about his major, he felt he would regret it if he completely missed out on the college experience. The networking potential of the lounge far outweighed its profitability. Controlling the lounge meant controlling a huge social circle. In some ways, that was more powerful than making a fortune. He would find a successor for the lounge in the future, not hold on to it forever. He would just follow Silas's example. You can't be greedy. He had the network, he had the money, so naturally, he had to invest in a business. He chose to invest in Payton. She could do whatever she wanted, like run a bar. Leo, you only have $250,000 left. Are you really planning to give it all to me? I couldn't help myself and blew a few hundred on a game the other day. If I keep it, I'll just lose it all. Leo, you know that's not what I'm asking. Did you see that apple tree that's grown in the yard? Leo said out of nowhere, taking a bite of a bean bun. You came home early and planted it, didn't you? Payton answered quickly. Damn, you figured out. The cryptic conversation left Payton in silence. Her hand clenched and unclenched. A quiet storm was clearly raging inside her. Leo, I'll never regret following you for the rest of my life. Too late to regret it now. Payton glanced at him. She took the thick scarf from her neck and wrapped it around both of them, tying them together. She took out her phone and snapped a picture. On the swaying bus, they took their last photo leaving the mountain village. One with a radiant smile, the other stuffing his face with a bean bun. Payton's question was never, why give me all the money? It was, why choose to accept me? The answer was simple. Because you reap what you sow. Once his memory returned, everything fell into place. That was the thought that had come to Leo as he faced the wind and snow that day. How many major choices does a person make in a lifetime? When the eaten apple core was planted in Earl's yard, a life-changing choice quietly appeared. The Miller family or Leo. Payton chose to go against her past, to grow in a different direction. But if you could casually grow an apple tree just by planting a leftover core, apples would have taken over the world by now. A woman dealt a bad hand is like a leftover apple core. She's not even a proper seed. How could she possibly bloom? Payton had gone through countless hardships without a happy ending. So on this trip to the village, Leo had specifically bought a sapling and planted it there. It will bloom. When she planted the apple tree, Payton made her choice. That was the cause. It also helped her escape a disaster. A disaster that might have come from the Miller family. Because when you covet the Miller family is also watching you. It's hard to say what Payton's fate would have been in her original trajectory. But you could look at her cousin, Connor, who had vanished as lightly as a blooming reed. But now, she had been reborn. And if Payton had truly betrayed Leo from the very beginning, what would Leo's fate have been? The femme fatale at their first meeting, the wild rose in the small village, the car crash, the family dinner, the concert. As the faded scenes intertwined before his eyes, Leo stared out the window at the receding scenery in silence. A woman like Payton didn't need some deep, emotional confession. How much is that stuff worth anyway? But that didn't mean doing nothing. Right now, Earl was probably figuring out how to build a shelter for the sapling. Otherwise, it wouldn't survive the freezing weather. He wasn't that kind. It was all because Leo was paying him. If the sapling was still alive when Leo came back next year, he'd give him $1,000. This sapling was new, unrelated to the rotten apple core. Because Payton was also new, this sleeping woman. She would return to that warm city of Riverbend with a brand new identity. He would find a way to take care of her, just like putting a cover over a fragile sapling. The title sister-in-law would probably only be used occasionally in the bedroom from now on. Leo watched the heavy snow drift past the window and fell into a deep sleep. I'll wait for the snow to pass another year, because soon it will be a vibrant spring. Don't rush. I'll help you bloom. After returning to Riverbend, Leo and Payton went their separate ways. He had his last exam tomorrow, and he had to make it this time, no matter what. The new and improved Payton also needed some time to embrace her new life. Clothes, a place to live, a car, and the business of the bar all needed to be set up. Originally, Leo was worried and wanted to go with her, but all he got was a ruthless taunt from Payton. Don't act like you're worried about a child going out alone. In front of me, you're the child. You're older. Older? You didn't seem to mind how old I was when you were latched on and nursing. Don't talk dirty on the street. Payton showed none of the usual sadness of a couple temporarily parting ways. In fact, she was more carefree than Leo. I can't be too clingy with you, otherwise you'll get tired of me in a few days. It had to be said, Payton really understood men. Objectively speaking, Leo thought Payton was the perfect embodiment of a lover. Presentable in public, a master in the kitchen, independent, and not clingy. Most importantly, she was seductive, and her brilliance lay in the fact that she knew her own shortcomings, like her lack of status and position. So she chose the role of a lover to amplify her strengths to the fullest. Smart women have the best luck. She deserved to get ahead first. This time, Leo chose to go home to study. If he studied on campus, someone would always bother him. Home should be fine, right? After fumbling for a bit, he opened the door and wandered around to find the house empty. Leo decided to call his mom. Hey, Mom, are you downstairs playing mahjong? Where have you been these past few days, son? I've been studying hard at school. How were your final exams? Good, all good. Leo started to panic. The fear of parents asking about grades was buried deep in his bones. Even though his mom's tone was as kind as usual, he couldn't help but feel guilty. He sensed a hidden undercurrent in her words. Leo shook his head, dismissing the thought. How could that be? His mom was such a gentle person. Their family was famous for its motherly love and filial piety. Son, I'll be home in about half an hour. You stay home and don't go running around. Okay. I'll hang up now, son. Mom, do you need me for something? I'll hang up first. I can't hear well on the phone. We'll talk when I get home. The moment his mom hung up, Leo's alertness shot to maximum. Something was wrong. Leo keenly sensed something was off. Normally, if his mom wanted him to stay for dinner, she would just ask, "Are you busy tonight? If not, stay for dinner. Mom will make you pork ribs." She wouldn't demand that he stay home and not run around. This is bad. There's killing intent in the air. Could she know I flunked? Leo's face turned grim. He shot into his room, grabbed a random book, and started flipping through it. He was committed to this good student persona, and no one was going to stop him. Diane Miller was actually sitting on a bench not far from their building. If Leo had just glanced around when he came back to the complex, he would have noticed something was amiss. The amiss part was this. Willow was also there. After hanging up, Diane's expression was calm. She actually trusted her son. What Rick had said was probably just hearsay. She needed to ask Willow what was really going on first. Willow, honey, I want to apologize first. It was my fault for not attending the engagement party. Willow sat with her knees together, her hands tucked between her legs, looking as nervous as could be. Hearing Diane's words, she quickly shook her head and waved her hands. No, Annie, our engagement party wasn't a proper one. No matter what, it's not right to be a laughingstock for friends and family. People will definitely think we don't respect you. Annie, the Miller family respects me very much. The Miller family is the Miller family. It has nothing to do with our family, Diane said, gently stroking Willow's hair as she looked at her future daughter-in-law. Her eyes held a trace of regret. She regretted missing such an important milestone in her son's life. This was an engagement. Her son was truly becoming an adult. Willow obediently accepted the stroking, though she felt today was very strange. Why had Auntie Diane suddenly sought her out? Willow, what are you two thinking about for the future? Auntie, Willow didn't know what to say. Just say whatever's on your mind. Once you're engaged, you're family. Auntie, then I'll be honest. We might not have a future. Willow struggled for a long time before finally speaking her heart. She couldn't lie about this. She was already shrinking into the corner of the bench, her slender legs in black leggings trembling nervously. This pitiful appearance, combined with her aggrieved tone and the words, "We might not have a future," made Diane gasp. She reached out and took Willow's arm. "Oh, you poor thing. Tell Annie what happened. How can there be no future? Auntie, it's my fault." Willow's eyes reddened as she said this. She had thought that holding onto the status of fiancé would at least maintain some kind of bond. It turned out to be useless. Don't cry. Tell Annie what's going on." Diane's maternal instincts exploded as she looked at Willow's pale, delicate face, trying to comfort her. "Annie, I want to tell you, but I have to ask Leo first if I can." Willow was being considerate. Since Leo had even hidden the engagement party from his mom, it meant there were some things he definitely didn't want her to know. But hearing this, Diane's heart skipped a beat. Look what a mess Leo has made. What has he done to this poor girl? It was bad enough that she was so miserable and felt they had no future, but she even had to get his permission to speak. "You listen to Andy. Tell me everything, down to the last detail." "Andy, I really can't say. A son is truly beyond a mother's control. It's one thing to hide the engagement party, but now he won't even let his new bride acknowledge me as her mother-in-law." Diane sighed heavily. Willow's internal alarm bells went off. New bride won't acknowledge her mother-in-law? This is bad. The mother-in-law/daughter-in-law relationship is getting tense. This won't do. Willow quickly leaned in and poured out the story like beans from a bamboo tube. "It was Grandpa Miller who arranged our engagement. Leo and I had agreed it was just a contract, but I changed my mind halfway through." "You had regrets?" "I wanted to make it real." "What do you like about him, Willow?" I don't know. I wake up every day hoping to see a message from him. Does he message you? He did once, but he immediately deleted it. He said he sent it to the wrong person. What did it say? Let me see your legs. Willow wasn't lying. That message was from the period when Leo was flirting with Isabella. She figured it was probably meant for her. Back then, Willow hadn't fallen in love yet and hadn't thought much of the message. But when Diane heard this, she felt her blood pressure skyrocket. My son sent a young girl a message asking to see her legs. If I don't step in now, what will happen? Willow, keep going. Then I selfishly asked my dad to hold an engagement party, and Grandpa Miller agreed. But Leo didn't want to treat the party as a formal ceremony, so he didn't tell you, Annie. Please don't be mad at him. I'm not mad about that. When it involves the Miller family, anything strange is understandable, Diane said with a nod. So, to put it simply, you're chasing him, and he hasn't agreed. MHM. He did give me a chance, but I'm always so clumsy and mess things up. Willow gradually opened up, beginning her relationship summary for her mother-in-law. My best friend says that although I'm an idiot, I'm a brave idiot. The little girl is quite a klutz, Diane said, rubbing Willow's cheek. She said it out loud, but deep down, she really liked this girl. For a mother, seeing such a sweet, determined girl in love with her son made her very happy. At this point, Diane had a pretty good idea of the situation. It was a love story born out of an arranged marriage. Willow was in love, but her son wasn't. There was nothing she could do about that. Diane wouldn't interfere with her son's feelings. But she felt like she had forgotten something. Why had she asked Willow to come here? Right, Willow the twins. Willow's face changed dramatically. Weren't the twins just a terrible idea from her best friend? She hadn't even put it into practice yet. Willow's face flushed red instantly. It was too embarrassing to talk about such things with an elder. After holding in for a long time, she managed to squeak out, "Auntie, you know about that?" The moment those words were spoken, it was as if the temperature in the entire Riverbend estates dropped by 10 degrees. A terrifying storm was gathering. Diane looked up at the window of her apartment. A palpable killing intent hung in the air. A persona is something you have to act out. The evergreen stars of the internet had demonstrated this principle long ago. So the great actor, Leo Miller, was currently sporting a completely drained expression, his hair a messy bird's nest. Coupled with the chaotically arranged books on his desk, anyone who saw him would say, "Kid, take a break. Don't study yourself to death." He maintained this pose without moving a muscle, pretending not to even hear the sound of a key turning in the lock. He had deliberately left his bedroom door ajar, just so his image could be discovered quickly. This question is so hard. I don't get it. He sighed theatrically, just so his mom would skip the topic of his failing grade when she came in. My mom must feel so bad for me right now. Son, you're doing great in college. Diane did indeed walk to his bedroom door, just as he had planned. Totally, Leo chuckled, coughing weakly. Life is all about the performance. You've even managed to produce a grandson. Mom, my roommates are just messing around when they call themselves my godkids. They don't count as your grandsons. Leo thought she was talking about his roommates, but when he saw his mother's serious expression, he suddenly realized something was wrong. Mom, wait, what grandson are you talking about? Who else? The child in Willow's belly. Diane pointed to Willow on the sofa, laying her cards on the table and beginning her interrogation. She's pregnant. Leo was truly baffled. It definitely had nothing to do with him. They had never even done that. As for her getting pregnant by fooling around with someone else, Leo didn't believe that either. Willow wasn't that kind of person. His mother's convinced gaze made even Leo start to doubt himself. Mom, could this be a misunderstanding? Look at her. Does she look like a mother with that clueless face of hers? Feeling the gazes of mother and son fall upon her, Willow pointed to herself. Are you talking about me? She clearly hadn't processed the news that there's a baby in Willow's belly yet. She reached down and patted her own stomach, trying to feel the kicks of an infant. No baby is kicking me. She looked up and said, I don't think there's a baby in my belly. Leo and Diane looked at each other, then sighed in unison. Leo said, see, you two really didn't conspire to trick me. Diane took off her coat and sat on the sofa, speaking earnestly. Son, Mom knows you have your own ideas about everything, but you absolutely cannot lie to me about this. So what if she really is pregnant? You get married. No discussion. Diane stated her position. Since you're the one who got her pregnant, you have to be prepared to take responsibility. But she's not pregnant right now. Let's go to the hospital for a checkup. At least it will give me some peace of mind. Diane was very concerned about this matter. What a person cares about is determined by their personality and experiences. Just as Leo, who had struggled for his education, cared about his good student image, Diane, who had raised her son alone, was particularly concerned about the matter of children. Son, since we're on the topic, tell me, do you really want to marry Willow or not? I don't, Leo said, shaking his head decisively. Then the old man is dead. Are you still going to continue the engagement? If I break off the engagement after the party, not only will she become a laughingstock, but the business dealings between the Shung and Miller families will also be severed. To see how much face one loses from a broken engagement, you only had to look at a character from one of his fantasy novels. The shame was enough to forge an emperor. Leo himself didn't care about the title. Breaking an engagement wouldn't get him any money. The engagement itself didn't restrict him in any way, and by not breaking it, he would have fulfilled all his promises to Willow. They had made it very clear at the family dinner back then. You cooperate with me for the engagement, and I'll help you fulfill your wishes. Now that the Miller family matters were settled, Willow had also helped her father regain his status. You could say their alliance had a perfect ending. Diane nodded after hearing this explanation. At the end of the day, her son hadn't abandoned anyone. That was a good thing. Diane pulled her son into the bedroom and whispered, Mom's going to ask you a couple more questions. You seem a bit resistant to marrying Willow. Leo leaned against the wall and said, Mom, I'm a little hesitant about getting married. To bring up such a topic with his mother at the end of the year, in a traditional family, would be suicidal. But Diane didn't scold him. Instead, she straightened his collar. Son, Mom is very happy that you can talk to me openly. Can you tell me why? I don't know. I just feel like there's no difference between being married and not being married. In fact, Leo had had this thought for a long time. He felt that getting married, aside from holding a ceremony, had no meaning for him whatsoever. What do you get from marriage? A warm home? Companionship? Emotional support? Leo already had all those things. Leo's attitude wasn't one of arrogance, but rather of bewilderment. He really wanted to know the meaning of marriage. In the past, he would ask Silas whenever he had a question, but Silas couldn't answer this one. Because that old dog wasn't married. He had no experience either. Actually, Mom supports your approach. One shouldn't get married just for the sake of getting married. Mom, your open-mindedness surpasses 98% of parents. Leo gave her a thumbs up. He was just trying to preemptively defend himself. He didn't want her nagging him about being an unfilial son if he didn't get married in the future. Mom, what were you thinking when you agreed to marry Dad back then? Leo was curious. I was just having dinner with your dad, and he suddenly stood up at the table and asked if I wanted to get married. My mind was completely blank. So you also got married in a daze? I was definitely dazed, Diane said, getting up and patting her son's back. But my thoughts were very clear. I wanted to marry him. Was it because he was handsome, rich, or good to you? None of that is important. The most important thing is that, for whatever reason, I wanted to marry that person. His mom also felt it was time to say something to her son. Her son was great in every way, except his love life was too messy. She felt his reluctance to get married was entirely related to his romantic history. Just the one she knew about. Isabella Vance, Summer Lynn, Willow Shung, Skylar Reed. Honestly, as a mother, she was inevitably selfish. More than the girls getting hurt, she was more worried about her son getting hurt in the chaotic relationships. A mother always worries about her own. That's why she was so concerned about the twins. It wasn't that she was eager to have grandchildren. It was because some things just require parents to step up and take responsibility. When something like this happens, parents can't just leave it to their children to solve. Diane sighed and walked out of the room. The exams were over. Northwood University was officially on break. The guys from room 3201 gathered in a circle. Among them, only Dave wasn't a local. He was from a city near Riverbend. My high-speed train ticket is for tomorrow morning. Tonight, we drink till we drop. Dave had a bold personality, at least among guys. But in front of a girl, you couldn't get a peep out of him. Still, he desperately wanted a sweet romance. Leo, god of romance, can you find some beautiful girls to hang out with us? Dave looked at Leo with pleading eyes. Hang out? Skylar Reed loves to hang out. Spare us the divine intervention. We can't handle the campus queen. Then I'm out of options. Leo shrugged. He only knew one person who liked to party. No, wait. Evelyn Shaw was also a party animal, but her style was too dark. If she got drunk and pulled out a knife for a little bloodletting game, no one could handle that. I can ask some girls from the dance club to come out with us. Luke asked, looking to Leo for his opinion. Sure, if everyone agrees, I agree. Leo had no interest in the dance club girls. In fact, he didn't feel much about his roommates leaving for the break either, since they hadn't lived together for more than a few days anyway. He was purely treating this as a part of college life and trying his best to fit in. No need to ask the others' opinions. Dave was already grabbing hair gel to style his hair. Tonight, he was going to conquer the world. At the school gate, the three girls from the dance club met up with the guys from 3201. Leo, Do you feel like they're secretly looking at me? Dave whispered, hiding behind Leo. Definitely. I get that feeling every time I go out with you. Leo nodded in agreement. Could it be that they're looking at Leo? Mike posed the question. They can't all three be looking at Leo, right? Dave retorted. Mike really wanted to say that it was entirely possible, but he was interrupted by one of the girls walking over. Hi, my name is Chloe, the tall girl said, introducing herself. Hi, I'm Dave, Dave stammered. What are you so nervous about? I'm not going to eat you, Chloe said, covering her mouth with a giggle. That one sentence sent Dave's temperature soaring. His CPU went into overdrive. I'm not nervous. How are we getting to the bar? Should we call a rideshare? We have a roommate in the car. No, wait. My roommate He has a car. He can give you a ride. Leo finally stepped in to help. Well, thanks, Chloe said with a light laugh, waving her hand and returning to her group of friends. Leo took out the Lamborghini keys and handed them to Dave. It was a gift from Winsheng. Originally, Leo didn't want it, but this morning he found a car parked in his apartment complex, the keys left with the doorman. Clearly, when had sent it over. So Leo had just driven it to school for his exam. Leo, it's clearly your car. Why did you say it's mine? Fine, don't drive it. I'll drive, Godfather. Dave looked like he was about to hug and kiss Leo. His expression was priceless as he said, I think I'm falling for Chloe. Do you think I'd succeed if I pursued her? Before you said that, you had a 100% chance. After you said it, you have a 30% chance, Leo said, ruthlessly shutting him down. What's the reasoning? Who taught you to approach a girl by preemptively casting yourself in the role of a suitor? Leo stood there, speaking very seriously. Let me ask you, why is she out tonight? To drink, I guess. These three girls can drink by themselves. Why do they need to be with you? I don't know, Dave asked. Whatever you're thinking, they're thinking the same thing, Leo said, finding it amusing to teach a virgin about love. So forget the word pursue. While she's showing off to attract you, you need to show off to attract her. For example, I've already taught you the principle. The rest you have to figure out for yourself, Leo said with a wave of his hand. The master leads you to the door. The rest is up to you. Godfather, don't leave your child behind. Dave clung to Leo's hand for dear life. Today, he was determined to learn a trick from Leo, even if it killed him. Stop shaking me. I'll teach you a trick, Leo said, annoyed. He whispered, do you know the quickest way to bring people closer in a new small group? Godfather, please don't keep me in suspense. Share a secret. The easiest way is to gossip about someone behind their back. Leo knew Dave wasn't very perceptive, so he was direct. When there are 7 people together, and the secret is only known to the 2 of you, conversation and intimacy will appear immediately. What if there are no secrets? You have to create one. A secret that cannot be spoken during the party. Leo wanted to give Dave a few more examples, but Dave seemed to have achieved enlightenment in an instant. With a howl, he ran off. At the Afterglow Lounge, Ms. Vance is really straightforward, Payton said, smiling as she looked at the transfer contract in her hand. Is there anything else? If not, I'm leaving. The mixed-race beauty's face looked particularly ethereal under the blue and purple lights. Isabella Vance did not look happy. What's your relationship with Leo now? Ms. Vance, I've answered this question many times. It's purely a superior-subordinate relationship. You expect me to believe that? Isabella came from a prominent family. She had seen this kind of thing too many times. Giving a woman a business for no reason? He was either cheating or planning to. The only thing that surprised her was, how did you even think of coming to me? Isabella felt her temper was too good. Setting up a business was one thing, but to specifically target the Afterglow? It was a blatant provocation, as if to make sure she knew about it. I'm helping you. Don't give me that nonsense. Isabella's anger was clearly rising. Ms. Vance, I've been in Miller family for a while, and I still have some connections. Do you know what the latest rumor in the Miller family is? Don't keep me in suspense. Frank Miller is about to become grandfather. Even the kitchen staff knows about it. Isabella was stunned when she heard this. She subconsciously touched her own stomach. But I'm not pregnant. As soon as she said this, it was Payton's turn to be stunned. She looked at Isabella in disbelief. Ms. Vance, you don't still think you're Leo's girlfriend, do you? Why wouldn't I be? Isabella retorted. Don't you know you two had a fight? Who doesn't fight in a relationship? I'm working on it. Payton's large, almond-shaped eyes widened as she tried to discern if Ms. Vance was joking. She stared until her eyes ached. Then she finally resigned herself to the truth. Why despair? Because she realized Isabella wasn't joking. Oh, for the love of God, Payton said, looking up at the ceiling in despair. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry. In the first half of the Mafia game, she had been completely suppressed by this person. In the second half, she had finally made a comeback. But now, this woman was her teammate. A formidable enemy when she was strong, and now she had to help her get back on her feet when she was weak. My life was truly meant to be this hard. In the end, Diane didn't take Willow to the hospital. She chose to trust them. The rumor storm didn't seem to cause too much damage. The misunderstanding was destined to be just a minor incident in life. As she gradually forgot about it, Diane went downstairs to the market to buy groceries. In the bustling market, she ran into Summer Lynn's mother. They lived in the same complex close by. Diane went up to say hello. I haven't seen Summer around lately. That child hasn't been well since the New Year's concert. Maybe she's just exhausted from work, Summer's mother said, her brow furrowed with worry. Did you take her to the hospital? What did the doctor say? Summer said the doctor just told her to rest well, that it's nothing serious. Well, that's good. The concern on Diane's face wasn't fake. After all, she had watched the girl grow up. She was like a second daughter to her. You didn't go to the hospital with her? Summer wouldn't let me. She said it's not good for a public figure to be photographed at a hospital. What's wrong with a mother accompanying her daughter to the hospital? Let them take pictures. Diane looked puzzled. Summer's mom shook her head in confusion as well. I don't really understand all these things either. Diane didn't think much of it. After buying her groceries and going upstairs, she didn't even have time to take off her coat before calling Summer to check on her. Summer, honey, your mom said you haven't been feeling well lately. I have been a little under the weather. What did the doctor at the hospital say? Just stress, irregular schedule. Wretch. A sound of vomiting came from the other end of the line. After a moment, Summer's voice came back. Auntie, you don't need to worry. It's hard for me not to worry, honey. Diane suddenly had a bad feeling. Summer going to the hospital without her mom. Was she trying to hide something? And to say that her son and Summer had been dating for so many years and hadn't done that. Diane didn't really believe it. Summer, honey, I'm not an outsider. Tell me the truth. Are you pregnant? Diane was direct with her second daughter. They had that kind of relationship. Annie, no. I just haven't been feeling well lately. All right, Annie understands. Diane hung up the phone, shaking her head to clear her thoughts, and carried the groceries into the kitchen to cook. Some things are better left unexamined, especially after just experiencing the rumor storm. Her grandson Nerve had just been struck. Summer was a celebrity. A pregnancy would have a huge impact on her. She definitely wouldn't admit it. And who knows what the state of her relationship with Leo was. Diane sighed. Her son's love life was a complete mess. She wasn't someone who hadn't seen the world. Back in the day, hadn't she seen plenty of Rick's rich friends with their mistresses and sugar babies? She felt she had to pay more attention to her son's love life. The biggest impact of the rumor storm was that it had maxed out Diane's grandson alert level. She decided to make some soup tonight and go over to Summer's house to check on her and to casually inquire about the situation. No sooner said than done. Diane walked into Summer Lynn's home carrying a pot of chicken soup. The apartment layout was almost identical to Leo's two-bedroom. Summer's mom was surprised to see her. Diane, what new dish have you cooked up for me to try this time? It's not for you. Where's Summer? She's in her room. She hasn't been in good spirits these past few days, Summer's mom said with a worried expression. I'll go in and see her. Diane knocked on the door and entered the room, where she saw a sickly-looking Summer Lynn lying on the bed. Summer, honey, Annie brought you some soup. Have some. Thank you, Annie. Summer's expression was also surprised. She quickly sat up and managed a few sips. It would be impolite not to drink it, but it was clear she had no appetite. What's wrong with you? Are you still that busy after the concert? It's just my irregular schedule. Stress and an irregular schedule are the causes, but what's the specific diagnosis? Diane pressed anxiously. I don't really remember. Something to do with my nerves, I think. Do you vomit often? Occasionally. Seeing that she couldn't get a straight answer, Diane decided to go for the jugular. Leo has a lot of friends in high places. I'll have him take you to a major hospital for a proper checkup. Auntie, please don't tell him about this. It's really nothing. It's settled. He's taking you. Diane knew there was a generation gap with these young people. She couldn't get anything out of them. It was better to just go to the hospital and see for herself. She said her goodbyes and left the Lynn's home. On the way back, she kept thinking about her son's love life. Maybe I should invite them all over for a meal during the New Year? Lunch, not the New Year's Eve dinner. Diane thought this was a good idea. She had to get to know them all, right? What if another one turned up pregnant and she was completely unprepared? She had known Summer since she was a child, so she could still talk to her. The others she barely knew. What if she wanted to find out if they were pregnant and had no one to ask? She needed to get to know them, really get to know them. The table at home could seat 6 people. Summer, the blue-eyed Ms. Vance, the ever-smiling Skylar, and the engaged Willow. For girls, plus her and her son. Just right. She would only host 4. Any more than that, and this new year would be ruined. She would have to go find Rick and have a serious talk about which side of the family her son inherited his genes from. There had to be a limit to his philandering. Ms. Vance, I've laid out the situation for you. You should think about it, Payton said, smiling as she looked at the transfer contract in her hand. Humans form romantic relationships through emotional connections, but they cannot escape the realities of the material world. At this stage, from every angle, only Isabella had the power to compete with Willow. Why hadn't she chosen the seemingly weaker Willow? Because Isabella was an independent entity, detached from her family. As long as she could handle Isabella, the rest didn't matter. But Willow was her parents' little treasure. Who knows what their attitude would be toward someone with Payton's sensitive status? So, she had just rationally analyzed the current situation and continued with a key point. Leo won't make a choice until his memory is fully restored. So, I'm waiting, Isabella said, agreeing with this idea. Ms. Vance, what makes you think this kind of thing can wait? But this condition can't be cured. Isabella was also troubled. She couldn't very well go and take a knife for him. Or even if she did, where would she find such an opportunity? The fact that his memories of me have returned means there's a chance for a full recovery. So I've developed some strategies for you. First, the transfer of a bar serves as a medium to continue your relationship. He agreed to go to your house, so you have a chance to continue spending time with him. This is to restore his memory. Second, just restoring his memory isn't enough, because you two had another conflict after his memory returned. You yourself have thought of a solution for that. I think that method is quite reasonable. After all, I feel Leo's threshold is a bit high. He's clearly more excited when you were the limited edition skin. This is to resolve the conflict. Although Isabella's expression was a bit annoyed, she reluctantly nodded. What more excited when you were the limited edition skin? Who is she showing off to? The day I take power, I'll get rid of all of you one by one. The thought made Isabella feel a little better. She took a sip of soda water and said softly, "So your idea is to kill 2 birds with 1 stone? Wrong. It's to hit 3 birds with 1 shot," Payton said, also taking a sip of soda water. She leaned back in her chair and scanned the men and women downstairs. Willow taking the Miller family route was a mistake from the beginning. Getting hundreds of Miller family members to approve is less effective than getting Leo's mom to approve. So, no matter what reason you find, you have to get Leo's mom's approval. "Willow, can you please stop sighing?" Skylar Reed kicked her feet, gently pinching her best friend's cheek. "We're watching a comedy. I was at Leo's place today, and I overheard him," Willow Shung said, her voice small. "He said he never wants to get married." For a while now, Willow had held on to a fantasy that if they just got married, everything would be okay. Hearing that news felt like the sky was falling. Skylar, being slightly shorter than Willow, slid down until her head rested comfortably on Willow's chest. It's not that weird for him to think that. Did you want to get married before you met him? No. See? You have to meet the person you want to marry before you start wanting to get married. But I'm not the person he wants to marry, Willow said, her self-awareness painfully sharp. He doesn't like arranged marriages. Wake up, sweetie. He just doesn't like you, Skylar said, tearing open a bag of potato chips. She burrowed into the comforter, making herself comfortable. The two of them, both so slender, fit easily on the single bed, a cozy picture shattered by Skylar's ice-cold words. "Get off me," Willow mumbled, pushing her friend's head off her chest. "God, you're so stingy." Skylar pouted, but seeing the genuinely hurt look on Willow's face, she sat up. "Fine, I can help you. I'll be your strategist. Your strategies are all insane, like your 10-month hostile takeover plan. But you have to admit, it's a strategy. Why don't you go try your 10-month hostile takeover then?" Willow shot back a thoughtless retort. But for Skylar, the words landed differently. Her eyes glazed over as she fell into a deep, immersive train of thought. A blush crept up her cheeks. "You think that would be fun?" she asked tentatively. "Of course not. Your tiny frame would be shattered in 10 months. Willow waved a hand in front of her friend's face, trying to snap her out of the insane idea. "Who are you calling tiny?" Skylar suddenly snapped, her head shooting up indignantly. "Well, you're not exactly." "Enormous," Willow said, unconsciously puffing out her own chest. "That's it, Willow. I'm never giving you advice again." Skylar whipped her head away, expecting her friend to beg for forgiveness. She waited and waited. Instead, all she got was, "But your strategies are useless. On the battlefield of winning over Leo Miller, no one is better than me. Not even Summer." Lynn, Skylar, fighting for her honor now, leaped dramatically to her feet. "Who am I? I am Skylar's son, Sue, the Napoleon of Northwood, the master strategist." She waved her arms, her voice rising with excitement. "Now tell me, Who are you? Willow pointed at herself, mystified. I'm your clueless client. Yes. And together, our duo will conquer the world. Wait. No, that's not right. You said we were a duo? Then what are we? You are the desperate king. Now, get over here and beg your brilliant general to come out of retirement. Willow sighed, resigned. She knew there was no stopping this until she played her part. General, I implore you, please come out of retirement. I accept. Skylar, still in her slippers, stomped on the floorboards for emphasis. First, you have to show off your advantages. Hearing this, Willow instinctively looked down at her chest. You mean these? No. Skylar immediately shut down her friend's foolish thought. Compared to me, sure, that's an advantage. But compared to Payton or Dr. Shaw, you got nothing. We've never compared. How do you know? Willow retorted defensively. I've felt them all. With Payton, you might have a 60-40 chance. But Dr. Shaw, as if recalling something beyond human comprehension, Skylar took 2 steps back, sucking in a sharp breath. I can't even describe it. How can something so miraculous exist in this world? It's super, mega, ultra. Sounds like you're describing it just fine, Willow muttered, green with envy. No, my words can't capture even a tenth of its ultimate, majestic, colossal power. The feeling, I'll never forget it. It was like the first thaw of spring. Skylar was lost in the memory, then snapped back to reality with a conclusion. Dr. Shaw was born in the wrong universe. If she lived in a world where power was measured by bus size, I would nominate her as our supreme leader, and I would be her loyal shield bearer. Is this the worship of a lesser god for a greater one? Shut up. Skylar held up a hand to pause the conversation. Now think, what other advantages do you have? Ay, maldito detalle. Isabella Vance has legs that belong on a runway. I'm more of a caretaker. Payton would like a word. Willow slumped against the wall, silent. She shifted her perspective. Maybe she didn't have to compete with the veteran squad. The next-gen team must have its own strengths. Leo always does what he wants, and all of them have their own weird ideas. None of them can be as obedient as me. No one is more obedient than Summer Lynn. Why do you think he'd look for you after an 8-year relationship with her? Well, Leo and I can have fun together. Willow looked up at Skylar and immediately shut her mouth. Forget it. Burn it all down. Mom, I want to come home. I'm done playing. Wah. I'm useless, she whimpered. Silly girl, you're not useless. The master strategist patted her client's head, smiling gently. Think, what makes you different from the rest of us? From you guys. Willow paused, then looked up. I met him after he lost his memory? Exactly. But that doesn't help me win. But it does get you my help. You said earlier that Leo remembered things about Payton, right? Yes. Then I guess we can't call her his cousin-in-law anymore. She's Payton again, Skylar said with a sly smile. Willow, that is why I'm willing to help you. I can even create a custom tailor plan just for you. Why? Willow asked, still confused. Because Leo regaining his memory is not a good thing, Skylar said, her eyes glinting like sunlight through a prism. The 2 strategists, still in their pajamas, sat at a small table, raising their yoo-hoo bottles. A summit of heroes. I forget the beginning, and I forget the middle, but in this world the only true heroes are you and me, Skylar declared grandly, raising her hand. Skylar, can you please just give me some actual advice? Willow said, reluctantly clinking her bottle against Skylar's. Point 1. You have to play with him. You can't just project your own methods onto me. We don't have the same hobbies, Willow said, already ready to give up after the first point. Her best friend was just as unreliable as she'd thought. I'm not telling you to be like me. Skylar, sensing the dismissal, jumped in front of her. Think about it. Leo has so much going on in his life. Why would he bother coming back to college? So he has a comeback when someone calls him a dropout on Reddit? It was the only reason Willow could think of. She genuinely couldn't figure out. Leo wasn't an idle person like her. Why go back to school? Did he need a diploma to get a job? Or was he planning on grad school? After settling things with the Miller family, he's in a transitional phase between one stage of his life and the next, Skylar said, hitting the nail on the head. Whoever can integrate into his life during this transition will become a part of his next stage. That actually makes a lot of sense. Willow was stunned, but couldn't stop nodding. It sounded good. She wanted to hear more. It was useful, but she still had doubts. I still can't compete with the others, though. Wrong. Completely, hopelessly wrong. Skylar gave her friends but a squeeze, her expression dead serious. At this critical stage of his memory recovery, they wouldn't dare make a move. Why not? Because they're afraid of me. Skylar, clad in a fluffy pajama set, crossed her legs, a smug smile on her face. Skylar, Can you stop being so cryptic? Willow grumbled. Use that brain of yours. In his lost memories, who is the real heavy hitter? Skylar's expression was practically begging. It all but screamed, say it's me. But Willow thought for a long time before finally speaking. Dr. Shaw. She's not even afraid to die. That's not what I meant by heavy hitter. The answer made Skylar jump up in frustration. I'm asking who has the best odds of winning in his lost memories. A dozen faces flashed through Willow's mind like a movie on fast forward. Finally, the frame settled on the girl in front of her, the girl sipping a yoo-hoo, radiating confidence from head to toe. If you told me you and Leo were celestial beings reincarnated to endure a trial of love, I'd believe you, Willow said, the words tumbling out. There was no reason. It was just a feeling. Curled up in her chair, Willow accepted the reality of the situation. This smiling girl, her best friend who was supposedly helping her, was probably her greatest rival, an insurmountable peak. If you asked her what made Skylar so powerful, she couldn't say. Skylar always seemed to be slacking, yet everyone felt she was terrifyingly strong. Do you really think anyone wants Leo to get his memory back right now? Skylar asked, stroking her platinum blonde hair in the mirror. Willow thought about it seriously. The conflict between her best friend and Leo had stemmed from a clash of ideals. After their brief, happy time together, one wanted to chase the horizon while the other was tied to reality. Back then, everyone was just a little wary of Skylar. They told their stories, made their moves. But that was then. What about now? Now Leo wasn't worried about money. In fact, he didn't know what to do with it all. If Leo fully recovered his memories, completely free from the fog of amnesia, and was ready to start a new life, would he leave with her? The thought sent a shiver down Willow's spine. She looked at her best friend, replaying Skylar's actions over the past few months. Before Leo lost his memory, when Willow didn't even know him, the first thing Skylar did every morning was call him. Gluing them together would have been fine with her. But now, her best friend was deliberately keeping her distance. How could he regain his memories without spending time with her? And she had cultivated this final boss persona for everyone else. Losing his memory was my gift to you all. If he gets it back, none of you stand a chance. It was like she was subtly sabotaging the recovery process. Skylar, what exactly happened between you two? Willow's curiosity was piqued. If I could talk about it, would I need to hide it? Skylar patted her friend's head. Did you cheat on him after you agreed to be his girlfriend? Get out. Skylar shot back. Stop worrying about that. The point is, only you have no connection to the past. That's why I have to help you. Why does this feel like you're doing me a huge favor? Do you want the favor or not? I do, Willow said with total honesty. At this point, her best friend seemed like a cheat code for life. So your only real enemy is Isabella Vance. Skylar, the master strategist, finally began her lecture. Because even after the amnesia, she and Leo were practically in a relationship. So you need to defeat her. I can't. Willow's head, which had just lifted, dropped again. She truly couldn't. Willow, have some backbone. I've summarized your advantages over her. You can accept Payton. She can't. That's one victory. Wait. Willow quickly cut her off. When did I say I could accept that? You can't? Then go find someone else to date. This battle isn't for you, Skylar said bluntly. It's not that I can't accept it. I just need some time to adjust. No normal person could accept something like that. Even with her own strange inner thoughts, when faced with the reality of it, Willow obviously needed time. Skylar, why is it that when you talk about this stuff, you sound like you've already accepted it? I never said I could accept it. But a boring, normal relationship isn't worth my time and energy, Skylar said, shaking her head and patting Willow's shoulder. Why are you so fixated on Leo? Isn't it because this abnormal relationship is exciting enough to completely overturn your previously calm life? Everything is new, something you've never experienced before. Willow looked into her friend's eyes. She knew that despite Skylar's cheerful demeanor, she had a high threshold for stimulation. The first all-nighter playing video games feels thrilling, but do it every day, and you'll get bored. Adventurous people need a constant stream of new experiences. I still need time to get used to it, she said. Just having that attitude is already a win. Isabella won't even think about adapting. So what's the second victory? You have one victory, and Isabella has none. That makes 2 victories. Wait, so you're telling me my greatest advantage is my high tolerance for bullshit? Willow was stunned. As it stands, yes, Skylar nodded. So you need to get on good terms with Payton and, at the same time, work on integrating yourself into Leo's life. You have a huge advantage there. He has to go to school, so you can just be with him every day doing campus couple stuff. But it's winter break. Then we change tactics. His mom already knows about the engagement, so just shamelessly move into his house. Go fishing, visit the Taoist sanctuary. Maybe you could wear Taoist robe? I bet Leo would love a limited edition skin. Willow knew she was out of her depth. She pulled out her phone and opened a note-taking app to write it all down. What her best friend was saying made sense. She was going to try it. She asked one last question. Skylar, why didn't you teach me all this sooner? Skylar turned away, her back to Willow, a small figure in fluffy pajamas. He remembered Payton. That made me realize things were starting to get ugly. Skylar, I don't think bad things in the past are necessarily bad things. Willow felt she had to comfort her friend. Out of all of them, Payton was probably the most serious threat. Even Summer Lynn was just a minor squabble in the grand scheme of things. Payton initially wanted to use Leo as a stepping stone, but didn't he forgive her? Willow was trying to get her friend to communicate with Leo peacefully. Tolerating one more was fine. Tolerating two, well, with some adjustment, maybe it was possible. But Skylar suddenly spun around. What are you thinking? Willow, you're on the verge of being eliminated, and you're worried about me? Willow froze. She had a point. Skylar's gaze was as confident as ever as she slowly raised a finger. The game between me and Leo, and the game between you all and Leo, are completely different. I have my own way of winning. Isabella Vance and Payton sat in the kaleidoscopic glow of the Afterglow Lounge, the dance floor below a writhing mass of casual lovers. They were drinking sparkling water. Skylar Reed and Willow Shung sat on a small dorm bed, a critically acclaimed comedy playing on a laptop. They were drinking Yoo-hoo. The veteran squad said, we need to win over his mom. The next-gen team said, we need to use the engagement to shamelessly move into his house. But Leo's mom had just left Summer Lynn's house, and Summer Lynn was drinking chicken soup. It seemed, in this multi-front war waged in different locations at the same time, Summer Lynn was slightly ahead. Meanwhile, in private room 305 of the Jubilation Karaoke Bar, Leo Miller looked like he was about to have a drink of his own. He fumbled awkwardly on the table, grabbing a beer bottle, then a microphone, neither feeling right. What are you looking for? A soft female voice murmured at his ear. I think I'm just a little thirsty. Your answer is hesitant. Your movements lack a clear target. You're obviously trying to cover something up. Conclusion. You're nervous. Lady, do we have to do psychoanalysis at a karaoke bar? Leo scowled. There's no need to be nervous. Why don't you turn around and look for a few more seconds? Once it becomes normal, you won't be. Leo risked a glance over his shoulder, then whipped his head back around. Dr. Shaw, put your coat back on. Fine. Dr. Evelyn Shaw gave him a look and picked up her coat from the couch, draping it over her shoulders. It's on. Leo turned his head again and, just as quickly, turned it back. Zip it up. Aren't you being a little dramatic? Acting like some innocent little choir boy. Evelyn leaned in closer, her voice a slow whisper in his ear. We've met so many times. I've never seen you react like this. The shirt you're wearing today is... It's too form-fitting. Leo was no innocent choir boy. Not much could shock him anymore. But the visual impact of Evelyn today was overwhelming. To be precise, it was the impact of her thoracic region. As winter set in, the temperature in Riverbend had dropped significantly. Evelyn had swapped her usual flowing dresses for a thick down coat. She was frail and couldn't handle the cold. But underneath that coat, her choice of attire was spectacular. Her top had no pattern, but the front was a series of crisscrossing laces. If one were so inclined, one could untie the 3 sets of laces one by one, releasing the beast from its constraints. And the top was skin-tight. She wasn't curvy and full-figured like Payton. Thus, the image of a slender branch bearing magnificent fruit was on full, breathtaking display. What are you doing here? Leo hadn't even checked his phone amidst the karaoke chaos. He had no idea how she'd found him. I have your roommate's number. The one named Dave? He posted your location on his Instagram story. What do you need? Leo leaned closer to Evelyn, trying to hear her over Dave's caterwauling. And then she bit him. I figured your exams ended today, and you'd probably go out for a farewell drink with your roommates. So I came to play. You came to ask about Payton, didn't you? Leo gave her a weary look. You guessed it. So what's the situation? Evelyn's expression was perfectly composed. To anyone else, she was an elegant, well-educated woman. Leo had nothing to hide from Evelyn. He gave her the gist of what had happened. He wasn't surprised she'd shown up. The woman had likely seen someone else make it to shore and was here to demand her turn. And what did that mean? She wanted to make it to shore, too. Honestly, Leo knew it himself. If he ignored her, her fate would likely be far worse than Payton's, at least in the eyes of the public. To Evelyn herself, death was just another box to check. After everything they'd been through, Leo couldn't just watch her die. It would be a waste. But how should he handle it? In what capacity? That was the problem. Payton was relatively easy to deal with. Ambition meant she could channel her energy into a career and wouldn't get tangled up in other things. But Evelyn couldn't do that. You couldn't just give her a career and expect her to be satisfied. It's too loud in here. Let's go find somewhere else to talk, Leo said. He was just killing time anyway. Since she was here, it was better to talk outside. But Evelyn waved him off. I came to play. I've never been to a karaoke bar in my life. You've never been? Too many people. Every time Leo heard her say she didn't go to crowded places, he felt a profound sense of dissonance. In public, Evelyn always seemed so poised, nothing like the creature of darkness you'd imagine hiding from the light. Was she really afraid? Leo, the girl sitting on your left, keeps looking back and forth between us, and then she talks to her friend. That's Chloe. Dave wants to ask her out. You have an 80% chance of taking her home tonight. If it's not 100%, I'm not interested, Leo quipped. The remaining 20% means there's a 20% chance you just take care of business right here in the KTV bathroom. Stop. It's not that serious. Leo wasn't that confident. Getting her to go out, maybe for a late-night bite, he could see that. He had that much confidence. But anything more was just ridiculous. I'll make you a bet. I can make that 20% a reality, Evelyn said, her eyes fixed on Chloe, eager for a challenge. Making a bet without naming the stakes is just plain rude. If I win, you have to drink my milk. Before Leo could even react, Evelyn turned her back to the others, unzipped her coat, and leaned down close to his ear. You get so nervous just from looking. I wonder what your expression would be when you're drinking. Evelyn smiled her gentle, warm smile, her long, narrow eyes sparkling with a dangerous light. I'm so looking forward to it. Chloe was here for Leo. With makeup, she was a solid 7 or 8 out of 10. Her social media was a curated feed of trend-chasing, point-and-shoot selfies, and she was a regular on the nightclub circuit. She was, by all accounts, a player. It was all about the game. As a self-proclaimed pro, she hadn't really wanted to waste her time on this high school level get-together, until she heard Leo was coming. To the average student, Leo was just Skylar Reed's accessory. Even if you want to know more about him, he was hard to find. But to those in the know, it was a different story. Skylar was a top-tier beauty from a wealthy family. Could the guy she hung out with constantly be just some nobody? So, Chloe had started digging for clues about Leo a while ago. She couldn't find anything on her own, of course. Places like the Cypress Lounge or the Miller Estate were far beyond her reach. Then, a few days ago, a friend invited her to a party. It was hosted by a group of rich kids from Boston. The host, a guy named Sebastian Cole, had a strange taste. He barely gave any of the girls a second glance. It was only when Chloe mentioned she was a student at Northwood University that he raised an eyebrow. I have a friend who's an alum of yours. What's his name? Maybe I know him, Chloe said, curious. A rich kid's friend was probably another rich kid. His name is Leo Miller. I actually do know him, Chloe said, surprised. So Leo really wasn't just a regular guy. What's your relationship with him? He's my savior. My great savior. He saved my life. Sebastian became incredibly emotional at the mention of the topic. And that's when Chloe had locked onto Leo as her new target. It was a well-known fact that most top-tier beauties were already claimed by the time they hit college. Chloe wasn't quite at that level. She had to make her own opportunities. But Sebastian saw right through her. You'd better not get close to Leo, he warned. Why? Leo is a straight arrow. He's practically a monk when it comes to women. Sebastian wasn't lying. In his mind, Leo was so honest it was almost abnormal. Isabella Vance told him to crash a wedding, and he did it. What normal person would dare to crash the wedding of a powerful family in a strange city? This wasn't about money. And as for being a monk, if you were dating Isabella Vance, you could pretty much say goodbye to other women for the rest of your life. With that face of hers, a perfect blend of arrogance and disdain, you wouldn't even dare get a math problem wrong in her presence. Her expression alone could silently obliterate your entire self-confidence. Anyone who could have thoughts about her was a god among men, especially if you married her. You could forget about ever looking at the temptations of the outside world again. The best-case scenario was your junk disappearing. The worst was a full-on body disappearing act. But Chloe just smiled when she heard this. A straight arrow? A monk? Doesn't that make him the easiest to conquer? Back in the karaoke room, Chloe took a sip of her beer, plotting her victory. As a seasoned player who had hooked countless men, she knew that even when you were on the offensive, you couldn't be too aggressive. You had to wait for the right moment. And this woman walking towards her might just be that moment. Hi, I'm Evelyn Shaw. Hi, Chloe. Even in the psychedelic lights of the KTV, Evelyn had an aura of calm. Her scholarly air combined with her gentle voice, made a simple greeting feel genuinely comforting. I'm a friend of Leo's. Dave mentioned that. You're a psychologist, Chloe said, cutting her off. Actually, that wasn't what Dave had said. He'd said she might be Leo's girlfriend, since that's how Leo had introduced her last time. But Chloe was testing the waters by saying friend. She noticed Evelyn didn't correct her. That meant Evelyn was just like her, a competitor. Let's all hang out, Chloe said, inviting Evelyn to sit down, sounding like the host. She was trying to seize control of the room's social dynamic. But Evelyn spoke up. Just drinking is no fun. Why don't we play a little game? She didn't look at Chloe. She looked directly at everyone else in the room. While the others hesitated, waiting for Chloe's response, Evelyn quickly moved on. Dave, want to play? Yeah, of course. Mikey, don't call me that, call me Mikey. And I'm in. Evelyn went around the room, asking each person by name. Once you were called out, you couldn't refuse without seeming rude. Naturally, everyone agreed, even Chloe's own friend. But then, Evelyn, who had been going clockwise, deliberately skipped over Chloe. Without asking for her opinion, she picked up the dice and shook them. Simple game. High roll wins. Loser has to drink and play truth or dare. Chloe's face darkened. This Evelyn woman had not only seized the momentum in a matter of seconds, but had also declared war. But Chloe had no intention of backing down. A party like this needed a little game to liven things up. This was her chance. Leo, want to join us? Chloe pretended to have just noticed him, calling him over with a light smile. Leo met her gaze, also coincidentally, and shook his head with a small smile of his own. He was laughing at this girl, Chloe. In front of Evelyn, she was a complete rookie. She'd been completely outplayed in just a few sentences, and now she was caught in a rivalry. Under these circumstances, there was no way Leo was going to play. Evelyn was a minefield of bad intentions. When she was messing with people, she famously didn't distinguish between friend and foe. Her attacks were all wide-area AoE spells. Playing with her was a guaranteed disaster. I'll sit this one out, Leo said. Come on. Evelyn waved him over. I'm afraid you'll screw me over. You weren't afraid of getting screwed over when you begged me to take care of a patient for you, Evelyn said, her smile warm. Fine, Leo sighed. He had just wanted to be a spectator, but he did owe her a favor for taking care of that patient. If she wanted to play, he'd let her play. He'd just supervise from the sidelines and make sure she didn't go too far. A group of them crowded onto the couch. There were 7 in total: Leo, Dave, and Mike, Evelyn, Chloe, and her roommate, a girl named Mindy. Luke and another girl had disappeared somewhere shortly after they arrived. They were probably getting food by now. 13 points. Looks like our beauty, Chloe, loses, Evelyn said, sliding a bottle of beer over. Chloe was a good sport, downing in one go. As she put the bottle down, some beer trickled from the corner of her mouth. She instinctively looked for a napkin. Dave, sitting right across from her, quickly passed one over. But Chloe acted as if she hadn't seen it, ignoring the napkin completely. So annoying, she thought. She turned her gaze to Leo, making a small, helpless sound, asking for his help. Leo saw it all. He yawned and looked her straight in the eye. In this situation, I usually just use my sleeve. You should try it. That comment was Leo's blunt way of saying he wasn't interested. While he was powerless against the allure of beauty, he was a very picky eater. Chloe didn't use her sleeve. Instead, her tongue darted out, tracing the line of her lips and catching the stray drop of beer. I took care of it. She tilted her head and smiled at Leo. Impressive, right? Very flexible tongue. You must practice a lot, Leo said, giving her a thumbs up. During their exchange, Dave's hand, holding the napkin, was left hanging in midair. With so many people watching, it would be too awkward to just retract it for no reason. He was stuck. She didn't see you holding it that close? Dave could feel sweat beading on his forehead. Thanks. Leo reached out, took the napkin, and blew his nose. Good pass. Next time, don't. As Leo's actions registered in Chloe's mind, she had only one thought. He really is a straight arrow, clueless when it comes to women kind of guy. What normal person would say something like that? Chloe's smile widened. This was good. It meant Leo didn't understand the intricate dance of romance. Chloe, honey, we're here to drink, not to go in a heat, okay? Evelyn said, her face expressionless. What did you say? Chloe didn't quite hear her. Truth or dare? Pick one, Evelyn said, clearing her throat. I picked truth. She chose truth to avoid being forced to interact with another guy. In this kind of social setting, even a small interaction between a guy and a girl could create a sense of intimacy. If she was asked to interact with Dave, for example, everyone might assume they were a temporary couple, and they'd be stuck together for the rest of the night. She was still waiting for her chance with Leo. Unfortunately, Evelyn, who had the high roll, was not going to be so kind as to aim the punishment at Leo. "Tell us how you feel about Leo," Evelyn said, casually pointing at the man watching the show from the couch. Oh, the group chorused. Only Dave's expression was a little stiff as he half-heartedly waved his arms with the others. Chloe pretended to be shy, covering her face. She hadn't expected Evelyn to actually help her out. What was going on? Was she testing her feelings for Leo? Chloe propped her head on her hand, her eyes darting around as she feigned deep thought. Leo is the first guy I've ever met who is handsome, a total straight arrow, and completely clueless about women. Dave froze. Mike dropped his glass. Even Leo himself was stunned, his mouth hanging open. "That's how she describes me." "Are you talking about me?" Evelyn had just recorded the whole thing on her phone. Who she sent it to, nobody knew, but the assessment, straight arrow, clueless about women, was already making the rounds. "Again," Evelyn said with a beaming smile, shaking the dice. 13. "You lose." "I lost again," Chloe grumbled, sneaking a glance at Leo's expression. "I choose truth again." "What do you think of Dave?" "He's a nice guy." "Thanks for driving us here," Chloe answered in a flash. She already knew the car was Leo's. Dave had been eagerly waiting to hear her response, but it was over before he was even ready. "Dave, don't get in too deep." Even Mike, a lifelong bachelor himself, could see something was wrong. He nudged Dave's arm, whispering, "Chloe is obviously into Leo." "You're wrong," Dave said stubbornly, but then he secretly texted Chloe. "Are you into Leo?" They had exchanged numbers in the car. "Ha ha ha, is it that obvious?" Chloe, who had been clutching her phone, replied quickly. "Nobody else can tell. It's our little secret." "Then you have to help me keep a secret, okay?" "Don't worry." Dave silently made a V for victory sign. He felt like he had just taken a huge step forward. Leo had taught him that the fastest way to build intimacy was to share a secret. And this counted as protecting a secret, right? During their texting, Evelyn's eyes darted between Dave's and Chloe's faces. She waited until they both looked up before continuing. "Just so everyone knows, this is the last round of truth or dare. The loser has to choose dare." No one objected. In fact, Chloe looked excited. She had just used her phone for the most important task, telling her friend that if she won, she should dare Chloe to do something intimate with Leo. The third round ended. Sure enough, Chloe lost, but the winner was still Evelyn. "Dr. Shaw, are you a psychologist or a professional card shark?" "Just lucky." "So what's the dare?" "This dare requires two people to cooperate, Leo and Dave." Evelyn's expression was priceless as she coaxed them. "Are you willing to help with one last dare? If you don't, then I guess the party's over." At this, Chloe was the first to get nervous. After this last game, the party would be over, and everyone would go their separate ways. She hadn't had much of a chance to talk to Leo yet. "Dave, will you help me with a punishment?" Chloe looked at Dave first. With that one sentence, even if Dave didn't want to, he had to grit his teeth and agree. "She asked me." As for Leo, he stepped up without a word. He was just here to play along with Evelyn anyway. Whatever she wanted. The dare is for Leo and Chloe to spend 5 minutes together in the bathroom. The timer starts the moment the door closes. Evelyn pulled out her phone and set the timer, giving Leo a sly wink. The KTV bathroom was surprisingly spacious. Leo leaned against one of the sinks, ruffling his hair. Chloe walked in and immediately started complaining. "What is Dr. Shaw playing at? Where did you get the idea that I'm clueless about women?" Leo could tolerate being called a straight arrow. He kind of agreed with that assessment. Even though in the eyes of others he was a guy who skipped class and failed, scammed his cousin, crashed a wedding, was a celebrity's rumored boy-toy ex-boyfriend, made his fiancée attend their engagement party alone, verbally abused his psychologist, kept his cousin-in-law as a kept woman, occasionally cursed out his own father, and lied to a bunch of rich women at a speakeasy to get them to buy memberships. If Master Hausher heard about all this, he'd probably treat Leo as a top-tier demon and try to exorcise him. But Leo still thought he was a pretty honest guy. But clueless about women? That he couldn't stand. Using that phrase to describe a 20-year-old guy. It feels like you're secretly insulting my masculine function. "It was actually your friend who said that," Chloe said, leaning against the wall, feigning shyness. Her heart was pounding, alone in a small, secret space, but knowing there were people outside paying close attention. It was so thrilling. Which friend? Leo was confused. Chloe gave a rough account of how she met Sebastian, slightly beautifying her own role. She changed herself from a party-crashing girl to someone who was just out with friends and happened to run into Sebastian. Chloe figured Leo wouldn't see through it. After all, he seemed so listless at the KTV, not like someone who enjoyed partying. He probably never went to places like this. At that thought, her heart beat even faster. A rich young master who didn't party and was a total straight arrow. That was a rare find. She had to seize this opportunity. But the lie was shattered in an instant. You managed to get into one of Sebastian's parties? Isn't he more into the European look? Leo asked. I wasn't crashing. That's not important. You didn't happen to see a woman with blue eyes there, did you? No, a woman with blue eyes. Good that you didn't. Otherwise, your future might not have been so bright. Leo sat on the edge of the sink, bored. He couldn't figure out what Evelyn was trying to do. He'd just play along for now and talk to her properly after the party. Leo, I need to use the restroom. Can you turn around? Hold it. It'll smell, Leo said flatly. It was hard for him to have a good impression of Chloe. He could guess with his eyes closed that she was a social climber. Unfortunately for her, the tax on that particular career path was already being collected by Payton, and it looked like a long-term collection. Chloe's expression soured, but she held it in, comforting herself with the words, straight arrow. Why get angry at a clueless guy? She hadn't actually needed to use the restroom. It was an excuse to start taking off her clothes. An opportunity like this was rare. She had to seize it. It's so hot in here. Can you hold my top for me? Chloe's voice came from behind him. Leo turned around. What she handed him was a purple bra. You're trying to test my resolve with this? It's okay. You're clueless about women, a playful voice replied. An ambiguous atmosphere, thick with hormonal stimulation, began to heat up the small space. Dave had his ear pressed to the door, his expression shifting as he relayed the conversation. You're trying to test my resolve with this? It's okay. You're clueless about women. This was what Dave had to do, stand outside the door and repeat what was being said inside. Watching this scene, Evelyn finally showed a look of deep satisfaction. The truth or dare was all just a setup. She couldn't find joy in such small things. For a long, long time now, the one keyword that could truly make her happy was pain. That included seeing the pained expressions of others. She stood in the corner, whispering to herself, pain is the only proof that one exists in this world. To this day, no one knows how Dave survived those 5 minutes at the bathroom door. Time's up. As the timer on the phone hit 5 minutes, Dave was granted amnesty. He stood at the door, banging on it, repeatedly saying the game was over. But no one came out. Pressing his ear to the door, all he could hear were fragmented words, muffled by the sound of weeping. Dave's hands trembled. He turned to Mike. I think Chloe's crying. We should get someone to open the door. Dave, stop kidding yourself. Even if you've never done it, you've seen movies, right? Mike walked over and said quietly, patting his shoulder in consolation. He couldn't understand where Dave was coming from. It was just a girl he'd met once. Was it worth being this miserable? Mike had come out tonight with no agenda, just to have a few drinks with his brothers. Going out with Leo meant free drinks and a ride in a luxury car. Where else could you find a roommate like that? So we just wake up and stop trying to pick up girls. If I were a girl, I'd go for Leo too. Mike, you don't understand, Dave said bitterly. His state of mind perfectly mirrored the journey of a classic simp. Why do so many simps, despite having no real history with a girl, persist in their devotion? Because while their actions are few, their internal monologues are many. From the campus gate to the karaoke bar, Chloe had barely said a few words to him, but in the unseen corners of his mind, he had already tied himself in knots. Luke, who had just returned, saw the scene and asked what was going on. After getting the gist, he also silently patted Dave's shoulder. Didn't you see how fast I bailed? If Leo hadn't come, Chloe wouldn't have either. You guys are acting like I'm some lovesick puppy. I'm not that upset, Dave forced a laugh, waving his hand as he sat down on the sofa. He drank his beer with a show of bravado, but then he quietly queued up bridge over troubled water. Inside the bathroom, a masterclass was unfolding. A literal masterclass. You just take it off like that? Is that right? Leo pointed at the purple bra in his hand and tossed it back to her. If you're not interested, just say so, Chloe said, her expression turning cold as she put her top back on. She started to leave. If you walk out now, both our reputations will be ruined. I don't care that much. Chloe shook her head. Well, I do. 5 minutes. They're probably already gossiping about me being a two-pump chump, Leo said, his expression unreadable. Do men really care about that stuff? If you had someone holding a video of you, constantly yelling that you only last a minute, believe me, you'd care too? Leo muttered something incomprehensible to himself. He then sniffed the air. You smell like a mix of perfumes. You sprayed 2 today, right? One is YSL Black Opium. The other is some generic brand I don't recognize. Chloe nodded numbly. The YSL is strong, so you sprayed it right before you left. You use the generic stuff for daily wear. Leo was talking to himself, not asking questions, more like making small talk. You look down on people who use generic brands? I usually wear a $10 body spray. Any brand is more expensive than what I use. Leo shook his head, observing Chloe's hands. Your necklace and earrings are designer, which means you're part of the demographic that recognizes the value of luxury goods. But your bracelet is from some niche indie brand, no more than 50 bucks. I like niche things. You can only afford niche things, Leo said, lightly tugging on her bracelet. After all, a bracelet can be hidden under a sleeve. It's not too noticeable. And if someone does notice, you can just brush it off by saying you like niche brands. What are you trying to say? Chloe looked up annoyed. She didn't understand what this man was getting at. Was he looking down on her? Are you short on money at home? A sick mother? No. Chloe shook her head. But I come from an ordinary family. I can't compare to you rich young masters. I'm not a rich young master either. You misunderstood what Sebastian said. Don't lie to me. You people look down on people like us from the bottom of your hearts. Chloe looked up, meeting Leo's gaze. And what kind of person is people like you? What others call party girls, girls who fish for gifts. Oh, then we're the same kind of people. I'm even worse than you. Haven't you heard the rumors at school? That Leo Miller is for sale. Chloe had actually heard those rumors, but she'd never taken them seriously. She looked at Leo with a complex expression. You're really not a rich young master. Nope, Leo answered crisply. Unexpectedly, Chloe squatted down on the floor and started crying. What are you crying for? Didn't expect to find a fake rich kid. Nothing. I just feel like I was being delusional, Chloe said, her crying turning into self-deprecating laughter. A real rich young master would never be interested in me. Your version of the game is outdated. If you'd met a guy named Ethan in the last version, you might have had a chance. He's not a picky eater. Why are you for sale? Chloe asked, looking up. To make money. You don't seem like that kind of person. Did something major happen to your family? No, just to have a better life. Leo looked down at her. What? You also have the stereotype that only people with tragic lives have the right to pursue happiness. Everyone in this world works for a better life. We're all the same. Then can you understand the pain in my heart? Chloe looked up, her eyes shimmering with tears. Leo knew this look all too well. It was the expression women made when they were seeking spiritual comfort. A few kind words now, and he could probably have her. No, I can't, Leo said, delivering his verdict before explaining. If you told me you go to parties and drink to get some money from rich kids, I could understand the logic. It's a consensual transaction, no big deal. But asking me to understand your pain? That's ridiculous. That's like asking me to understand the pain of my neighbor Mark who blows his entire salary on gacha games and doesn't get a single SSR character. Why should anyone have to empathize with the pain you brought on yourself? After that speech, Leo didn't look at Chloe's expression. Instead, he pointed to his own heart. Your pain comes from a mismatch between your inflated ambition and your actual abilities. Simply put, as you get older, you're shocked to realize that your party girl days are numbered. All your exquisite lifestyle trappings will disappear, so you're desperately trying to latch onto a rich young master, looking for a permanent meal ticket. Chloe, still squatting on the floor, cried even harder. Leo's words had struck a nerve. She looked up, trying to reconcile the image of the straight arrow with the man in front of her. But she gave up. How on earth had Sebastian Cole come up with that assessment? Sorry, occupational hazard. I didn't mean to make you cry. Leo felt he might have gone too far. I'll help you solve your problem. I'll give you the number of the new owner of the Afterglow Lounge. You can go work for her. You're finding me a job? As a semi-rich young master, I can responsibly tell you that working for her at the bar will be a lot more comfortable than marrying into a big family. Can I do it? You meet the basic requirements of personality and appearance. And I think someone like you, who's willing to do something, is at least better than the women who lie around at home doing nothing but complaining that the world isn't fair. Chloe looked up. The conviction in the man's voice stirred some strange feelings in her. Leo, is this your way of hitting on me? You're overthinking it. I'm a very picky eater. Leo raised an eyebrow. But to Chloe's ears, that sentence clearly meant something else. Once the straight arrow label was crossed out, only one description of Leo remained. Clueless about women. You really are clueless about women, Chloe said with a small laugh. Say that again. Leo was clearly triggered. I don't believe a man would help me for nothing, Chloe said, her tears turning to laughter as she watched Leo's face with anticipation. This man was constantly shattering her initial impressions of him. He was far more interesting than she had imagined. I had it all figured out from the moment we walked in here. You help me, I help you. I never owe anyone, Leo said. How did I help you? Chloe asked, confused, then had a sudden realization. She pointed towards Leo's crotch. Help you. With my hand. Get out of here. Leo shot her a look, then explained. Thank you for playing along with this dare. You helped Evelyn find a rare moment of happiness. It's hard to make her happy without bloodshed. That's something to be thankful for. Chloe was stunned. So what exactly is Evelyn to you? What is she? Leo didn't answer the question, but a grin involuntarily spread across his face. Initially, he had treated all the amnesiac heroines as people to be wary of, a patient being cautious of anyone who posed a threat. But after Payton, the one he should have been most wary of, regained her memory, Leo's mindset had begun to shift. He had met so many women. Why had he forgotten only them? Because they were rare and precious companions on his life's journey. Though Leo hadn't answered, Chloe had already found her answer in his sly grin. Love, that abstract thing, is hard to find in the real world. But perhaps because the most sought-after things like to dangle you on a string, love sometimes materializes, making you want it too. An opportunity that was priceless to her was just a betting chip for Leo to make another woman happy. That kind of love. She was jealous. Just as Chloe was about to press further, her wish was destined to fail. A frantic knocking sounded from outside the door. She made one last desperate attempt, pulling out her phone to add him on WhatsApp, hoping to arrange another time for a deeper conversation. But all she got was a dismissive wave from Leo. I'm famous for flirting and running. Don't you know that makes a woman's heart pound twice as fast? Pound all you want. I don't owe you anything. Leo reached for the door. Chloe blocked him again. Since you're so afraid of people laughing at how short you last, why not stay a little longer? Lasting too short is a problem, but lasting too long is also a problem. The moment the door opened, Evelyn was standing there, head tilted. That wasn't short at all. I was starting to think it was another one-minute wonder. Can we please stop talking about this? Leo stormed out, his face dark, but Evelyn pushed him back in. Chloe, darling, you can go now. It's my turn. Evelyn made a polite please gesture to Chloe and walked in, completely ignoring the expression on Chloe's face. The door closed again. Chloe stood outside the bathroom, looking around at the others in confusion. But they were all silent. Only Dave was singing Bridge Over Troubled Water on a loop. Luke walked over. Dr. Shaw said she's paying tonight. We can go now. Chloe nodded silently, walked back to the couch to get her coat, and then paused at the door of the room, looking back towards the bathroom, momentarily speechless. Want to bet if Chloe leaves? Evelyn looked like a child who had just been given a lollipop, her smile as bright as could be. Are you not done playing yet, lady? Dave's pain was just the appetizer. The real main course was the look of pain on Chloe's face. Evelyn's face was filled with a crazed glee. After spending so much time with her, Leo was used to her insane pronouncements. All you could say was that humans were a species with a maxed-out adaptability stat. Even if you were thrown into a Lovecraftian universe, you'd never go hungry. A monster that feeds on pain. Sounds kind of cool, actually. The pain of others is not as satisfying as my own. Evelyn grabbed Leo's hands. This statement, combined with this action, made Leo instinctively think he was about to receive some tough love education. But his hands were guided to her chest. A playful look appeared on Evelyn's sickly face. First, let's fulfill the promise. But nothing happened in there. Leo fought to control himself. The more charming, the more dangerous. But Evelyn had already reached out and untied the first lace. And she stopped. She gently stood on her tiptoes, leaning in close to Leo, her gentle voice laced with a hypnotic magic. Baby, you do the rest, okay? What did you just call me? Aren't you just like a little baby right now? Leo was stunned. He forgot what happened next. He just remembered looking up at the ceiling at a 45-degree angle, endlessly repenting. He still remembered the wish he'd made as a child, to always stay true to his heart, to be an honest man. No matter how many temptations came his way, he would never change. Leo shuddered, then finally sighed. This world was just too crazy. Even a fine young man like him was powerless to resist. Even with all his strength, he couldn't say no to temptation. Fine. If I don't go to hell, who will? It was exactly as Evelyn had predicted. At the same karaoke bar, outside the same bathroom door, in the same pose as Dave, another person was crouched. Chloe was listening to the sounds from inside. She hadn't given up. What they weren't doing that. If he didn't do it with me, and he didn't do it with her, then that means we're the same, right? As she was concentrating on listening, the door to the private room creaked open. Chloe, are you leaving? Dave whispered, leaning in. You scare me. Why are you still here? Chloe almost collapsed, staring at Dave in disbelief. She had left with the others and then secretly snuck back. She was sure no one had noticed. I saw you come back. I thought you forgot something, so I came to check. Oh, thanks. Chloe was flustered, waving her hands. Don't worry, I won't tell anyone. It's our little secret. Thanks. I'll buy you dinner sometime, Chloe said politely, then stood there awkwardly. Dave wasn't away, but he was Leo's roommate, so she couldn't just tell him to leave. I'll get going then, Dave said, as if he understood. He walked out of the karaoke room and ran into Luke, who was coming around the corner looking for him. What were you doing back there? I left something behind. Was Chloe in there too? I think I saw her come back, Luke asked curiously. No one was there, Dave said, shaking his head and stopping Luke from going back to look. They walked out together. Luke eyed Dave's expression suspiciously. Dave, do you have a thing for Chloe? I don't think she's right for you. We're getting along great. We even added each other on WhatsApp and have been chatting a lot, Dave said. For real? Luke was skeptical. Chloe was clearly after Leo. Of course it's real. Dave waved his phone, then, as if remembering something, added, she even said she'd buy me dinner next time. Luke stopped, studying Dave's face. After a moment, realizing he wasn't joking, he said in surprise, Whoa, kid, you've really stepped up your game. Leo taught me well, Dave said with a laugh as he walked out of the KTV. He looked around, then said his goodbyes. You guys head back to the dorm. I've got something to do. What could you possibly have to do? Mike, who was waiting outside, was baffled. It was Luke who had the insight. She's not buying you dinner tonight, is she? Dave nodded. Well, we'll get going then. We won't bother you. Watching his roommates walk away, Dave found a tree and sat down under it. All around him were designated drivers waiting for fares. His smile vanished. He looked up at the KTV entrance with a bitter expression. He wasn't stupid. He could see Chloe's attitude. But when the words, our little secret, and I'll buy you dinner next time echoed in his mind, his smile returned. He automatically filtered out all the bad stuff. Chloe has to go home eventually, right? I'll wait for her. Maybe she'll be touched. He sat on the steps, fiddling with the fallen leaves. If you asked him why he liked Chloe, he couldn't say. He only knew that girls like her were usually only seen in videos. When he saw her profile on a local dating app, he didn't even dare to leave a comment. At most, he would fantasize about them late at night. He never thought he would have any interaction with them. You're supposed to win a girl over by touching her heart, right? What if she's touched? On the second floor of the KTV, Chloe was pressed against the door, straining to hear. Even if she heard what sounded like faint moans, she would tell herself, there are all sorts of weird noises in a KTV. Who knows if it's just someone wailing in the next room? Leo has to come out of the bathroom eventually, right? Maybe I'll have another chance to talk to him on his way home. When her phone buzzed repeatedly in her pocket, Chloe angrily pulled it out. It was Dave. I'm waiting for you at the entrance. Want to head back to campus together? Waiting for me? What for? Chloe was beyond annoyed. Was this guy trying to blackmail her? If she didn't pay him, would he post her story online? Campus gossip. Dance clubs. Chloe listens at bathroom door in pursuit of Leo. Chloe wanted him gone. The dorms are closing soon. You should head back. Don't worry about me. Aren't you going back to the dorm later? It took Dave a full 2 minutes to type out that short sentence. He felt like he was crossing a line by asking, and he hesitated for a long time. But he never received a reply, because no one was going to wait 2 minutes for him to read a message. In those 2 minutes, Chloe had already muted his notifications and was back to pressing her ear against the door. She heard a lot of strange sounds. Sometimes it sounded like a ruler slapping against skin. Sometimes it was a heavy, guttural moan. It seemed like they even had a fight, because she heard Leo curse. A fight is a good thing. Chloe stood at the door, patting her chest and letting out a deep breath. This means I have a chance. It wasn't even about whether he was a quality man anymore. She liked talking to Leo. It was a natural instinct to be drawn to the powerful. Even though Leo had just brutally torn apart her carefully constructed facade with a few words, leaving her defenseless, like smashing a high-end display case, exposing the cheap wine to the light, and then casually offering her a handmade wooden rack as compensation, or more like charity. If Leo had been consistently that brutal, she probably would have kept her distance out of fear. The man was terrifying, but when she learned that it was all just a sideshow to make another woman happy, complex feelings rose like steam, drawing a pink, heart-shaped cloud in the hazy air. I can't go back to the dorm tonight. I have to wait. Chloe wasn't going to let this opportunity slip away. Even though Leo had clearly shown he was closest with Evelyn, why were they fighting in there? And it didn't sound like they were doing that, right? She had to find a way to get closer to him. So she anxiously pressed her ear to the bathroom door. Some people, though in the same place, doing similar things, have no connection at all. Outside the KTV, Dave anxiously stared at his phone, waiting for a reply. He knew Chloe was more interested in Leo, but Leo wasn't interested in her, right? And why did Chloe add me, share a secret, and offer to buy me dinner? She must be going back to the dorm. I'll definitely see her. Dave paced anxiously under the tree. Perhaps only the music playing in the KTV lobby could serve as a medium connecting the inside of the bathroom, the outside of the bathroom, and the entrance. Even if blown by a fierce wind, I love you infinitely in this valley of sighs. Indeed, there is nothing in this world more foolish than self-deception. But then again, what can stand against a willing heart? Is this little human nature game fun for you? Leo shook his sore arm and stretched his numb jaw. Very fun. Evelyn's cheeks were a little swollen, her eyes glistening, but her expression was one of pure bliss. Are we done playing? If we're done, let's go talk. Leo took the lead, opening the door and finding the hallway empty. Well, not entirely empty. Chloe was on the sofa, pretending to be asleep. Leo had never seen anyone who was truly drunk manage to strike a sleeping beauty pose while also taking care not to smudge their makeup. There was no drunken messiness, only exquisite, deliberate effort. Leo opened his messages and saw a text from Luke saying they had left as Evelyn had instructed. Leo scratched his head, feeling like this whole KTV trip was a waste. He hadn't even sung a single song. What a waste of money. I didn't even sing one song. What does the big star's ex-boyfriend have a great voice to? Evelyn followed him out and went straight to the console to pick a song. Leo peeked over her shoulder. 1,000 Years. A timeless classic. Evelyn took the microphone and sat down, but just as she was about to start, Leo snatched it away. I suggest you sing this while cosplaying as the White Snake, just like in the story. Saying something like that proves you completely believe my story. While I can only trust half of what you say, you wouldn't bother making up such a minor detail that no one cares about, right? The devil is in the details. Evelyn smiled calmly. But Leo, I didn't lie to you. Those 2 sentences just dropped my SAN points through the floor, Leo said, grabbing a cherry from the fruit platter and popping it in his mouth. For New Year's, come to my place. Leo, I came to say goodbye. I knew you were going to pull something. Leo shot her an annoyed look. But someone's already done this bit. Can't you come up with something new? Who did it? Your bad girl's sister, Payton. She tried the whole self-pity routine on me, trying to leave as a defeated soul. Her expression was so resolute it had me confused. For a second, I couldn't tell if she was Payton or that self-torturing kid, Willow. Listening to Leo's loud complaints, Evelyn's expression didn't change. Instead, she nestled into his arms, quiet and docile. Already slender, the size difference between them was starkly apparent as she leaned against him. She fiddled with the zipper on his jacket, her eyes secretly appraising his physique as if lost in her own world. Suddenly, she spoke. Leo, if we did it for real, would you break me? Are you talking about Payton? Wait, what is wrong with you? Evelyn tied the drawstrings of the man's hoodie into a knot, her eyes fixed on her new creation. Hearing Leo's words, she tilted her head and replied, Who said I was giving up like that, fool? Say that again. I'll record it and send it to Payton. We'll see which of you is the bigger villain. I sincerely want to live like a normal person, she murmured, still tucked into his arms, as if stating a mundane fact. But Leo found people to be truly strange creatures. Just when you're spewing nonsense, they'll suddenly hit you with a dead serious statement. It was like being at the Taoist sanctuary, right at the brink, and the movie you're watching on your phone suddenly cuts from the leading lady to the lecherous male lead's face. You're stuck. Continuing feels gross. Stopping feels frustrating. Leo felt like he'd swallowed a fly. It took him a long moment to finally say, And what does living like a normal person mean? It means not having to depend on you like a bottomless pit, not having to drain you dry. I have a feeling that when you say drain dry, you're not talking about what happens between a man and a woman. I'm talking about emotions, state of mind, energy, Evelyn said with a sad smile. Leo, amnesia was a complete escape. I know better than anyone why you were running from me. Leo couldn't respond to that. His memories of that time were a blur. He couldn't offer a convincing explanation. He had to let Evelyn tell the story. The world is always in balance. When you have a loyal little dog and enjoy her obedience, you also have to accept the barking, the peeing on the floor, the chewed-up furniture, the smell of her waste, the scheduled walks, and the exorbitant vet bills. She whispered. The original recording of 1,000 Years played in the background. Their voices were only audible in their small, shared space. You weren't willing to pay that price, so you chose not to have a pet. I think that's an unfair comparison. You don't bark, you don't chew up the furniture. But I find new ways to try to kill myself. I harass you when you're tired from work. I have meltdowns when you don't have time for me. I secretly spy on your happy life with Skylar. I secretly send pictures of you and Skylar playing together to your sugar mama. Chewing up the furniture is child's play compared to you, Leo had to admit. Yes, people like me are bottomless pits. Even the most vibrant person would be drained dry by me. But people like me exist, and we're not a small number. So many men and women are like this, tying their hearts to someone else in the name of love, endlessly demanding emotional support. So, have you found some brilliant solution? Leo knew all this, of course. Did you think the heavens just hand you a pet for free? You had to be able to bear the cost. Imagine, You're exhausted, dealing with the pressures of life, just wanting to come home to a warm meal and a loving family. You open the door and see blood all over the floor. You ask her why she tried to kill herself. She says, "I don't know. I just don't feel the meaning of being alive." You check your phone, and your boss is demanding you work overtime in the group chat, threatening to dock your pay if you don't. For the first few days, it might even be novel. But over time, you'd have to be a saint to put up with it. But Leo had no life pressure now. None of his decisions were made on a whim. He had said he would take care of Evelyn, and that was after careful consideration. "I want to leave the house. Try a new life," Evelyn asked tentatively. Huh. Leo froze. He wasn't questioning the decision. He was questioning his own ears. Did Evelyn really just say that? "Leo, I want to leave the house to face more people, to find more things that make me feel alive." Joy visibly spread across Leo's face. He started bouncing around the KTV room like a giant monkey. "That's great news." He hopped around, even shaking the sleeping Chloe awake. "Don't sleep. Get up and go back to sleep later." "Huh? What time is it? How did I fall asleep?" Chloe looked around, dazed at the monkey-like Leo. "Let's toast." To celebrate Evelyn successfully leaving the house. Tea toast. Chloe had no idea why leaving the house was a cause for celebration, but she obediently took a sip. But Leo was like a faucet that had been turned on. He couldn't stop talking. Inside a dorm room at Northwood University, two girls in pajamas sat binge-watching a new comedy series, each holding a bottle of Yoo-hoo. Evelyn sat quietly on the sofa, watching the man perched on the couch. She knew that Leo was always searching for a way of life he could enjoy. In other words, he was searching for himself. That's why he was so desperately trying to recover his lost memories. But he didn't need to look for them in his memories, because he never realized. When faced with those dimming bonfires in the snowstorm, he would always have one hand in his pocket and the other striking a match. One hand for show, one hand for action. Then he would unhesitatingly toss his last flame into the ashes. When the fire roared back to life, a sly, genuine grin would spread across his face. Because in that process, he was enjoying himself. That night at the karaoke bar, Leo, for once, got drunk. He was a lightweight, so he usually avoided drinking. But not today. "Evelyn, I'm so happy for you," he said. "You're finally taking this difficult step. It's going to be hard. I'm even hesitating on the first step. Nothing to hesitate about. I'll help you," Leo declared, puffing out his chest. "This is something you can't help me with." The thought remained unspoken, hidden behind the wry smile on Evelyn's face. "I'd love to interview you. What made you decide to make such a positive change?" "It all started with tonight's test." "Test?" Evelyn pointed at Chloe. "I only had a vague idea before I came here, so I wanted to use them to test it." "That's too abstract. Say something I can understand." "I was looking for a source of motivation to keep me going, an anchor point for my mind." "That's even more abstract than the last thing you said." "When I personally manufactured Dave and Chloe's pain, I was happy. But the premise of change is to leave your comfort zone. I can't do things that make me happy, so I need a point to hold on to." Leo's brain struggled to process this. Like how an undisciplined person uses their ex-girlfriend's disdain as motivation to be disciplined, he asked tentatively. "Clever." Evelyn gave him the thumbs up. Chloe looked up, mystified, her gaze jumping between them. "How'd he get it?" "Why don't I get it?" "So what's the specific reason?" "The reason is that the things I like are the things that make you uncomfortable." "Did I show it?" "You secretly compensated Chloe for being my plaything. I'm sure you'll find a way to compensate Dave later." "How did you know that?" "Dave narrated it from outside the door," Evelyn said. "The fact that what I consider fun is boring and annoying to you. That alone is enough. You're willing to change because of me." Evelyn nodded. Leo scratched his head and gave her a thumbs up. "Whatever the reason, daring to try is a good thing. I'm on break anyway. I have plenty of time to help. Can you help me make a plan?" "Already done. Jointly developed by myself and Ms. Chloe here." Leo grinned, opening the Notes app on his phone. "First, we can go on a trip. See the Grand Canyon, Mount Rushmore, that sort of thing. Experience the thrill of being crushed by crowds. Second, you need to get a new job, one focused on experience. I personally think you should try working in an Amazon warehouse, but considering your frail physique, an office job is probably better. Finally, you have to break the habit of trying to off yourself all the time." Evelyn nodded, silently taking it all in. Then she picked up the microphone. "Can I sing now?" "Sing." Evelyn smiled calmly. This was the first time in her life she had ever sung in a karaoke bar. "The waters of West Lake are my tears. I'm willing to burn into a flame for you." When Leo stumbled out of the KTV, the first thing he saw was Dave, squatting under a tree. "Dave, what are you still doing here?" The alcohol made his mouth move faster than his brain. The words were out before he realized. "You're not waiting for Chloe, are you?" Dave nodded. Chloe shook her head. Leo put a hand on Dave's shoulder and asked quietly, "Did she secretly lead you on?" "No." Dave shook his head vigorously. "Then what are you waiting for her for?" "I was just trying to, touch her heart." Leo froze. How long had it been since he'd heard such a pure, simp-like statement? "Dave, I'm not going to lecture you. You handle your own relationship problems. Call me if you need anything." "Thanks for everything, Leo. It was just one car ride. No big deal." "No, I mean for teaching me your secret move. The one about sharing a secret." "What secret did you share?" "It's a secret. I can't say," Dave said, his expression firm. "Fine. Keep your secret. I'm calling a designated driver." Leo waved over a driver from the side of the road. He was about to get in the car when he noticed Chloe was still following him. "Aren't you going home? The dorms are locked." Leo scratched his head. He really had no idea what time the dorms closed. "Then get a hotel room." "I'm from Riverbend. I can go home." "Then go home." "Why are you following me?" "I've had a bit to drink. It's not safe for me to go home alone. Could I trouble you for a ride?" Chloe pleaded, leaning against the car. "Have Dave take you. I've got things to do. It's even less safe with him. And it's safe with me. Even if it's not, I'll take my chances." Leo was drinking some water and choked, spraying it everywhere. If Dave heard that, he'd probably break down in tears. But unexpectedly, Dave stepped forward. "Leo, just give her a ride." "No, Dave, if you're going to be like this, I really need to have a talk with you." Leo shot a glare at Evelyn. "Look what you've done to this kid." "Dave, it was just a little game. You think I can't tell the difference between a game and reality?" "Then what's this?" "Leo, you have a car? It's safer for you to give her a ride." "Fine. You get in too. I'll drop you a hotel." "No, Luke and the guys are at the Nexus for an all-nighter. I'll go find them." "Okay, be safe. Text me when you get there." Leo waved and got in the car. Dave watched the Lamborghini slowly drive away, then quickly opened his phone. "I kept our secret." He left with a huge smile on his face. "See? Leo's methods really work. If it weren't for this secret, what reason would I have to text her?" Evelyn was dropped off at home. Downstairs, Leo had told her he'd pick her up in the morning to go out. But they wouldn't see each other tomorrow. People are too dependent on their comfort zones. To completely change your behavior patterns, you have to completely leave your original life behind. A serious illness requires drastic medicine, and she was a very sick patient. Her room was already filled with packed luggage. She had to leave this home too, or she would just repeat her past behaviors. Change was far harder than she had imagined, but she knew she had to change. Otherwise, if she stayed by Leo's side, she would only take and never stop. As for why she didn't have a proper farewell, that would be too ordinary. Yes, that was it. It was too ordinary. In the familiar vampire count castle of her apartment, a candle was lit. The north wind billowed through the curtains, trying to carry them away. Evelyn changed into a fleece onesie, her hair, usually tied up, falling freely onto her shoulders. She placed a camera on the table. The candlelight was faint, giving the face in the viewfinder a blurry, grainy texture. "Leo, I chose a very melodramatic way to say goodbye. You might be angry, but I'm not going to apologize. Because I want you to remember me. Hate is a deeper bond than love. It always has been. Like Romeo and Juliet. Objective reality doesn't bend to subjective will, and a person's existence needs objective facts to prove it. You hate me, you love me, you remember me. Therefore, I will always exist. So I exist because of you. But my dear, my existence is endless pain for you. I could see that in your farewell to me before the car crash. Without me, you and Summer Lynn would not have reached this point. Without me, you would have had a peaceful life after your amnesia. But I will not apologize." At this point, Evelyn got up and adjusted the camera, tilting it down to get a full body shot. "The me you see in this frame, right now, has been a huge problem since the day I was born. My parents, my grandmother, my adoptive parents, no one was spared. But I'm not saying this to complain. On the contrary, it's proof that I'm willing to move forward. The pessimist is always right. The optimist always moves forward. If my existence, because of you, brings immense pain and suffering, then I will go find more ways to exist. Don't look for me, because as long as you are in my life for even one day, I cannot exist apart from you. You will interfere with my treatment plan." Evelyn smiled one last time at the camera and walked over to turn it off. But in the final second before she did, she suddenly pulled open her onesie, revealing her proudest asset. "One last treat for you." In her mind, she imagined Leo's expression when he saw the video later. He would surely grit his teeth. At that thought, she let out a sad smile. This was her final prank. She silently blew out the candle, closed the window, and placed the camera in the center of the table. She quietly pulled her suitcase and opened the door. When the familiar elevator doors appeared before her, she hesitated. Her whole body began to tremble. She was afraid. In the past, when her destination was Leo's side, she wasn't afraid. But this time was different, so she was terrified. She retreated back into the room, and the familiar feeling embraced her frail body once more. It takes immense courage to step out of one's comfort zone. Like a man who has been single for years and craves love, but refuses to leave his house to talk to a woman on the street. But Evelyn had anticipated this, so she gripped the doorknob, closed her eyes, and tried to give her fragile self the courage to change. God, grant me the courage to be invincible. God was probably busy. He didn't answer, but she found courage elsewhere. True courage always comes from a resolute heart. This time, she walked out, pressed the elevator button, and hid her frail body in the corner of the elevator, trying to avoid the light. But the small corner couldn't hide her. This time, she wasn't going back. A person always needs a reason to persevere. The cowardly become brave because their parents are bullied. The honest become worldly because the world is corrupt. Her reason was simple. She delighted in seeing the pained expressions on everyone's faces. That was proof she was enjoying herself. But she didn't want to see Leo in pain because of her anymore. That would make her cry tears of regret.